Majority Report with Sam Seder. It's time to look in the mirror, America. Do you like what you see?
I keep referring to Obama as the magic Negro.
Do you like what you see now?
Well, suck on this.
It's just a mirror, America.
Shared sacrifice by everybody.
What could it do to you except reflect your image?
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
The Majority Report.
Far more credible to me than PBS and Frontline.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, January 26, 2017. My name is Sam Seder. This is the four-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, David Dayen, on Steve Mnuchin, and Trump's real trade agenda. Meanwhile, the State Department's entire senior management staff resigned late yesterday. Donald Trump blindsides his Secretary of Defense and new CIA director with a draft order to revoke the ban on black sites and sort of torture. Also, he's insane. Trump voter fraud investigation nabs Steve Bannon, Tiffany Trump, and Steve Mnuchin. Another executive order targets sanctuary cities, shorthand for sanctuary cities and counties in states across the country. Eliminates FEMA funds. Rand Paul offers his repeal and sort of replace program, while other Republicans are beginning to see, maybe we should just pretend like it never happened. Also, Democrats aiming at sinking Betsy DeVos. And are the Republicans starting to lay groundwork to rid themselves of the Mad King? All this and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. I had such a dilemma because yesterday I was saying, Trump is insane. Let's not get distracted by that fact. And
then I walked in this morning and Sam was like, Trump is insane. We
Yeah.
need to be consumed by that fact.
I mean, honestly, I'm not watching. I'm trying to sort of somewhat pull back from his day-to-day insanity. And we're going to go through the clip, and we have at least 10 minutes of this ABC interview. And, I think in the past when I've said insane, what I meant was crazy, narcissistic, sort of demented.
Disgusting.
Disgusting, not very bright, but delusional in some way. But, within the margin of error of someone who's just really all those things and is president, right? Because, people, I think, who live, who operate in that world have a certain, psychological issues anyways. But then, everybody has psychological issues, some more pronounced than others. I watched this ABC interview, and honestly, the guy's insane. I think he's insane. And which I think he's so insane that it is going to implicate even Paul Ryan's plans, because the real action remains from Paul Ryan. I mean, I think Steve Bannon is off in the corner somewhere writing draft memos, floating them around. I don't know how you have a draft memo floating around about black sites and rolling back torture where your newly minted Secretary of Defense and CIA director are leaking or directly telling the press that they were blindsided by this stuff. I mean, it's clearly a madhouse in the White House right now. And the metaphor that I've been sort of using to explain this to myself is it's as if all of us, everyone in the country, is locked in we've been locked in a huge warehouse, and all the exits have been booby-trapped. Donald Trump is the booby trap. We just don't know. And while we're stuck here in this warehouse, in my metaphor, the Republican Party is looting the city. And I don't know. This morning I watched this interview and I was like, this guy is insane. It's not like he's crazy. I mean, he's insane.
It's not a metaphor.
Honestly, yes. I think that if, he's had a lot of cushion in terms of his money. And for all we know, he could have been broke before he got into the White House. A guy like that, if his dad was not a millionaire, but, a guy making $60,000, $70,000, $85,000 a year, I feel like Donald Trump right now would be in a facility. He would have been picked up in Penn Station at one point. He'd be in
Penn Station like, I have the best bags. I have the best plastic bags. By the way, did you know that the king of Greece runs the world? Still does. It's true. But seriously, can I take your coat for a second? You want some water? $5, fresh water. I do a great job.
It's great. We'll play it later in the program. And you're already seeing this reflected, whether it's in the media by like news people talking about what they're hearing from reporters and Republicans and staffers, and you're already seeing it with guys like Jason Chaffetz getting a little bit more motivated to do some investigations. Hugh Hewitt last night talking about how the Democrats may have their opportunity to impeach Donald Trump after the midterms if they take over. We are in day 6. I mean, this is just so crazy.
So I don't mean this in any way humorously or in exaggeration at all. Do you think that the calculation for Republicans is almost like, because I think that's true. They want to push through this agenda. He'll be the crazy guy, fall guy, front person. And now the assessment they have to make is like, okay, our plan was maybe wait till the midterms and then get rid of him. And now some of them have to be asking themselves, like, but is he going to...
I don't think people have turned that corner yet.
Okay.
I think there's just sort of like...
Are they starting to entertain it more than they even were a couple days ago is what I'm asking. I mean, it's based off of what you're saying. Like, it seems like even in the last 24 hours, all of a sudden Chaffetz is going from like, I'm going to intimidate independent government auditors who are saying objective things about him to all of a sudden like, we got to look at his hotels.
I mean... all I can tell you is that it's really hard to imagine that he begins to feel less pressure. Do you know what I mean? It's
not like the natural process of being president. By like 2 weeks, it's just like you're just in a rhythm.
I remember the first time
it's just like jazz.
I remember the first time I got a waitering job, And and even not even the first waitering job, like the first day at a place that has maybe a specific system, you're like, I'm totally lost. And, it takes a little while. And then, by day 2, year 3, you're like, oh, this is boring now. I don't think that's the way it works with the presidency. I think I would imagine the pressure increases. Like the level of complexity, far more complicated than, okay, you punch in the ticket at one of these different stations, but don't forget, you got to use your first initial of your second name plus the seats that you're, the tabletops you have.
I don't know. Bannon just drafted an executive order for me. I'm going to sign it. I want someone I saw on CNN to get phone tapped because they insult me.
They had computerized systems when you were waiting tables. No, they didn't. Don't lie.
They did, but they were very new. So people were very buggy.
I'm too freaked out by all of this to even make
which one?
jokes.
The computerized systems with the waitering?
No,
just one of the places I worked at, and it was late. That's a totally different story.
Jesus Christ.
I mean,
all that means is you've had a nice run before this all ends. The rest of us would have liked another couple of decades.
That's right. I mean, I feel like I got my fill. I let it really. I don't know. I mean, the upshot is Stamps.com. Because it's going to allow us to finally move some of our merch. And here's the plan. I've already opened up a Stamps.com account. We're building our website. Correct, Kelly? Yeah. And when we have our new website, I'm going to do one of those, I don't know, turnkey stores, and we're gonna move that product that we have sitting in the corner, T-shirts and tote bags. And I'm going to do it with Stamps.com. Because for a small business it is built for a small business. If you're every now and then you're mailing something, you go to the post office, you buy stamps, whatever. But with Stamps.com, you don't have to worry about keep going to the post office. Folks, it's no secret. There are 2 basic tenets in which I try and which principle my life. One is I don't want to go anywhere. And 2 is I don't want to spend any money. Stamps.com does both of these things for me. You can use Stamps.com to automatically calculate and print the correct amount of postage for every letter or package you send. Stamps.com brings all the services of the U.S. Postal Service right to your fingertips. It's a deal they have with the post office, which I also like, frankly. Buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter, any package, any class of mail using your own computer and printer. Stamps.com makes it easy. They'll send you a digital scale. You automatically calculate the exact postage. Stamps.com will even let you decide the best class of mail based on your needs. It saves you money. They give you postage discounts you can't get at the post office, including 3 cents off every first-class stamp. For the post office perspective, it gets people to use postal services. They give you postage discounts, like I say. Anything you can do at the post office, you can now do from your desk. You'll never have to leave your home or office again.
Nothing could be better.
Right now, use my code MajorityReport for this special offer. A 4-week trial includes postage and a digital scale. Go to Stamps.com. Click on the microphone at the top of the homepage. Type in Majority Report as a way of referencing the Majority Report. It's pretty easy to remember that. That's Stamps.com. Enter Majority Report. Sign up today. With Stamps.com, you'll never have to go to the post office again. And when you do, there'll be a lot less pressure because you won't be going for, the mailing stuff. You'll just be going to say hi to folks. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, David Dayen.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotions have an echo in so much space. And when you're out there without care, yeah, I was out of touch. But it wasn't because I didn't know enough. I just knew too much. Does that really think you're in control. Well, I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. Just like me. My heroes had the heart to lose their lives. I wanna live.
We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Always a pleasure to welcome our next guest on this program. He is an author of a New York Times best-selling book that, in many is it not best-selling?
Where are you getting that?
You didn't. It's not.
That's news to me.
Well,
I'm
predicting.
it was occasionally a bestseller at Amazon. Let's say that.
Okay, but it should have been. It should have been a.
I mean, you can say whatever you want. As long as you said it, it's now out there.
I mean, look,
So-
we're in a post. It's an alternative fact.
It's an alternative fact, exactly.
It's an alternative fact. So let's just leave it at that. I mean, don't.
What a fool I was for actually trying to correct the record.
Chain of
Like,
Title.
that's not how it works.
Chain of Title is referenced. I don't think I've ever seen a book referenced as much after the first 3 weeks it's been released as I have Chain of Title, honestly.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
And part of that may be because you got Steve Mnuchin, who is going to be, I don't know if he's going to be, but probably is going to be,
Secretary,
yeah, our Secretary of the Treasury. And I want to talk about Mnuchin and how he lied. But before we get to Mnuchin's lies, and before we get to the question of Donald Trump's trade policies, let's start with this other piece that you had. And I remember this in particular because I looked this vow up. Donald Trump made what ostensibly was, 4 weeks ago, considered like almost like the cornerstone of what he was going to do, draining the swamp. And he had really one major, I guess, day one agenda for draining the swamp, which was
it's on tape. He made a video that said, "This is what I'm going to do on day one," and he referenced a number of things, some of which he has done, but the main thing around draining the swamp was imposing a 5-year ban on any members of his executive branch from becoming lobbyists after they leave government, and a total ban on lobbying for a foreign government from any executive branch nominee. Now, he said it. It was one of the first statements that he made after the election. It was released 2 weeks after the election. It's on tape, and it's practically the only thing from that tape that he hasn't done.
And how many times would you say in the news media, or include in this direct interviews with him, has this been brought up since day one?
I would say 0.0 by the media in terms of since day one. It just has not been a story. Now, even Chuck Schumer mentioned this on the Senate floor on, I believe, Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, saying that this was your promise, this was your day one promise, and you haven't fulfilled it. But yeah, the media has been kind of slow on the uptake on this, and it just seems tailor-made. Like, here, you said this, why haven't you done it? Is about as easy as it gets for the media.
Let me do something that I think people will find uncharacteristic and surprising and say, I understand why the media has not brought this up, because Trump is completely insane. And I think that they are just sort of, it's really hard to ignore that massive elephant. I don't even know if it's an elephant. I mean, it's like it's the room. It's the room in the room.
The room in the room.
But, interesting fun fact about that lobbyist ban. There was a president that announced the exact same ban in our modern history. No, it was not Barack Obama, although he had something similar. But
Barack Obama had a similar ban, like a 2-year ban, only on whatever lobbying the former agency that you left. That was Obama's ban, which apparently is not being enforced anymore by the Trump administration. That was something that came out today from David Sirota, that federal forms no longer have that language that they can't lobby for 2 years on the form.
So not only did Trump not institute his own proposal, he actually is not upholding Obama's proposal because they're that desperate, I guess, for lobbyists. I mean, because presumably those are the ones that are sort of like more democratically aligned. Well, the guy who did, who last instituted this exact, I believe, policy was Bill Clinton. And oddly enough, it lasted almost 8 years. They stopped it when he left. It was like literally one of the last things that he reversed before he left. So the ban was, internal, I guess, which I guess you could understand on some level, right? I mean, the idea was that the ban was just for, at least they couldn't come back and lobby the Clinton administration or something. But they didn't want to stop thinking about tomorrow, I guess, was the...
And of course, we've seen this repeatedly through the transition. There was this alleged purge of lobbyists in the Trump transition. But then it came out that as long as a lobbyist deregistered, they could be in the transition. And there was an alleged ban on meetings with lobbyists at the transition headquarters, but they would go across the street. Or they would submit comments in writing. They still had a major impact on hiring and recommendations and things like that. So it's not surprising in any way that he would not uphold this promise. And really, it's more along the lines of that lobbyists are running and writing the administration's priorities rather than being set apart from them.
I got to think that in between the asking him, why he can't handle the fact that he didn't win the popular vote and why he's, wearing his underwear on the outside of his pants, those type of questions that they could just bring up, like you said, day one, and it's now day 6. What's going on with that? I mean, I guess he'll just say, 2 weeks away or something like that. But,
day one lasts a long time.
Yeah, right. I mean, an important thing to...
It's biblical in a sense, right? On day one, that's supposed to mean millions of years.
Right.
If you believe in evolution, right?
Right. All right. Well, let's move on because you have been on multiple beats, as it were, involving this stuff. He signed I don't even know what it was, basically a resolution or an executive order that put the nails in the coffin for the TPP. But, I mean, largely speaking, it was dead before he had done this, wasn't it?
Yes. There's no question that if it wasn't dead, it would have been voted on at some point in the year plus since it has been signed. And the reason it wasn't voted on is that the votes weren't there. Democrats had moved very forcefully away from TPP. And in part thanks to Trump, Republicans were more skeptical of it as well. And you just couldn't count to the proper number of votes in the House or the Senate, as far as I can see, to get the treaty advance. I'm sorry, it's not a treaty; it's an agreement. The agreement advance. So yeah, this was just sort of etching the tombstone on a grave that was already dug.
Do you think if Clinton had won the election, there would have been a lame duck attempt at passing it? I mean, they needed, the timing would have been impossible, wouldn't it? Because they need to sort of present it to Congress 90 days out. And they just didn't anticipate having the votes anyways, so they didn't do that. And they figured,
that's an interesting counterfactual. They put some of the steps in motion such that they could have given it a shot in the lame duck. However, the way in which Secretary Clinton was talking at the end of the campaign, and the promises that they had made would have made it very difficult. And she
I don't
would
think
have
any
had
Democrats
a lot of power.
right, and I don't think any Democrats
She would have had a lot of
voted
power
for
to say it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that you would have seen the critical mass necessary, particularly in the House, and Republicans probably would have turned against it, thinking that they would have, they would need better standards on the things that were renegotiated at the end to appease Democrats, like on tobacco, and a couple other instances that I think you would have lost more Republicans than you did on the fast track vote, and they would have held out even more to deny Obama victory, to deny Clinton something. So I just don't see that it would have passed even in that counterfactual.
Okay,
situation.
so what do we still have extant the TTIP and
Sure, and
TISA
the Trade and Services Agreement.
Right.
I don't think either of those are going anywhere. President Trump has made it very clear that he is only interested in bilateral trade agreements from this point forward. And TTIP is with the European Union, which is, 17, I think, member states. And TISA is with even more. I think TISA is with about 40 states.
Yeah, 50, I think it is.
He's 40 or 50. He's not going to do that. That's just not what he is interested in doing. Those are dead. And they might have been dead even before then, because particularly in TTIP, because Europe has been pushing against the investor state dispute settlement process, which is the sort of extrajudicial court that is set up to enforce these agreements on behalf of corporations. It just wasn't going to happen. The way moving forward is he's going to attempt a deal with the UK as they exit the European Union. He's going to want to renegotiate NAFTA, but that's kind of thrown up in the air now that the president of Mexico has said he's not coming to Washington after the executive order on building the wall and those matters. So who knows where that's going? But there may be a signaling of an intent to withdraw from NAFTA. The idea is to do some sort of bilateral deal, but we have no idea what that deal would look like. I mean,
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because we don't know if they won't just have the investor state dispute resolution system just on a bilateral basis, which is
absolutely, it's
which
in
is
most
not
of our
as,
bilateral deals,
right? Which is not necessarily, I guess, as problematic as doing it with 25.
Sure,
well, it's problematic based upon you just have less corporations, right? Or no?
Right. In the sense of less corporations, yes, but it's the same structure.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, there's a model template for ISDS that goes into practically every deal, including bilateral investment treaties and the like. There's for someone who's talked so much about trade throughout the campaign, maybe as much as any presidential candidate of the last, 30 years, the detail of what would actually be negotiated is extremely thin.
It's very detailed. It's very detailed. There's a lot of details. It's complicated.
Exactly. We have no idea what the priorities are outside of we want jobs in America for this president. And, a lot of things go into trade deals. What would be enforceable on labor and environmental standards? What would be enforceable on currency management? What would the rules of origin be? This is something where Trump's people have said, yes, we want more of, if we're doing a deal with Mexico, we want more of the car built in the coming from the U.S. and Mexico rather than from another country, from China or something.
Will you just explain that dynamic, the law of
level.
origin thing? Because this was one of the things that was really sort of BS about the TPP, which was that the way they defined. Just explain to people what that is, because it is.
Right.
It's one of those things where you can say. I mean, it's almost like it reminds me of we're selling health insurance. It doesn't cover anything, but we call it health insurance.
Right. To make it easier, we'll just say, let's say there's a deal between the U.S. and Mexico on autos. And it says that there's this 0% tariff between the U.S. and Mexico on cars coming across the border. And the rule of origin sets how much of that car has to be produced in the member countries, in the U.S. or Mexico. Sometimes it's as high as 65% or 75%. In TPP, it was as low as 35%, which means that another country could produce the majority of the vehicle, ship it to Mexico where they put on a bolt, and then ship it to the United States and get all the advantages of the low tariff without having produced the majority of the car. And so that's what rule of origin is all about.
And so we don't know anything about what Donald Trump...
We know very little about what his trade negotiators are going to ask for. Do
we know who they
like
are?
They're that interested.
Do we know who?
Well, yeah, we know who they are.
Who are they? Who's the Michael Froman of the Trump administration?
Yeah, the U.S. Trade Representative nominee has been announced as a guy named Robert Lighthizer. He was in the Reagan administration. He has definitely, similarly expressed and bias against China in terms of their mercantilism. We know that Peter Navarro, who's this guy that was a professor at Cal Irvine who wrote this book, like Death by China, and made a movie about it. He's at this thing called the National Trade Council, which is within the White House. It's almost like he's the trade czar. And we know that Wilbur Ross, who's the Commerce Secretary, is going to be heavily involved in trade matters. So those three really are going to be the key negotiators on all these trade deals.
And do we have a sense of where they are on this stuff?
I mean, we have a sense of where they are in general. They are, desiring better deals. I mean, I'm trying not to be so abstract about it, but they want better deals. They want less of cheating on current trade systems from places like China in terms of like dumping steel and those kinds of things. But we don't have the details on labor, on environment, on intellectual
I would imagine
property,
these
on
guys
all
are
of these other
big
things.
pro-labor, big pro protect the environment.
Right, exactly. I mean, you can guess. You can certainly guess. But all of the things that progressives have been really talking about in their opposition to TPP have been, around the fact that these trade deals aren't really even about trade anymore. They're about guaranteeing profits by harmonizing or Xing out regulations across borders. It just doesn't seem like the Trump administration is going to be too interested in that aspect of these trade agreements.
All right. Lastly, and I know you got to run, but just give us a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. Just tell us, Steve Mnuchin, he seems like one of the guys. I don't know. I mean, Betsy DeVos is clearly one of them. Pruitt is clearly one of them. There may be one or two others that the Democrats seem really focused on fighting, I guess, or voting against, or arguing in public. I mean, I don't know how to really even characterize that. Is Mnuchin one of those people?
It seems like it. It does seem like it, and it's weird that in an environment where Republicans can pass all of these nominees by themselves, why you would give them aid and comfort, I just don't understand it. But
in other words, why would you vote for any of them?
Right. I mean,
right.
It doesn't make sense to me. But Mnuchin does seem like one of them. And what we found out, and I wrote my story yesterday, is that after a confirmation hearing, senators get a chance to ask questions for the record. So they ask, in this case Mnuchin, to send written answers to additional questions that they didn't get time to ask in the hearing. And Bob Casey asked this question: has One West Bank, which was Mnuchin's bank, engaged in robo-signing, which is the practice of rapidly signing foreclosure documents that say, I have reviewed and I have personal knowledge of all the information in this foreclosure file. And they would sign like 10,000 a week. There's no way for them to actually have any personal knowledge while signing that rapidly. And this was a big scandal. It led to, in 2010, most of the major mortgage servicing companies stopping foreclosures because they were submitting these false documents. And Mnuchin responded to Casey's question about whether One West had ever engaged in robo-signing, but said, nope, we've never done it. We have not engaged in robo-signing, and I'm proud of my bank's record. And that's just a lie. I mean, we have copious amounts of evidence showing that One West engaged in robo-signing, including a One West employee admitting to it in a deposition where she admitted that her team of 8 people signed 6,000 foreclosure affidavits a week, and she admitted that she never read any of them before signing that she had personal knowledge of the foreclosure case file. So this is the textbook definition of robo-signing, and she admitted to it as a One West employee in July of 2009. So for Mnuchin to say that, and there's more evidence, and it's in the story, but that's the biggest piece. For Mnuchin to say that One West never engaged in robo-signing is just patently false.
And that's the type of thing that makes a nominee, at least in most normal circumstances, right, radioactive.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't
I would
tell
I
a
would
blatant lie about engaging in fraud to the Senate. Theoretically,
I would say lying. I would say lying to the Senate is around the top of the list in terms of establishing a lack of credibility. So we'll see if that matters to any of these Republicans who are charged with voting on this nominee.
Nah, we're not going to get too caught up in that. David Dayen, one last question. Why robo-signing?
Yeah.
Why don't they call it false validation? False testimony? False...
It's really robo-perjury. I mean, that's what it is.
Right.
It's mass perjury. Interestingly, robo-signing was a name that came out. It was devised by a foreclosure defense lawyer who was just saying that, look, Jesus, they're like robots with the way that they're signing. And then that became the statement. And a lot of people sort of in this whole foreclosure defense community didn't like the name because it does, as you say, sort of take the edge off of what this really is, which is false evidence submitted to courts. But the name stuck, so, I'm using it.
All right. Well, I'm using false validation. That's the one I'm going to use.
Okay.
Or perjury, signing perjurers. I'm going to come up with something. Robo-perjury. I think the robo just makes it too nice. All right, David Dayen, always a pleasure. Thanks so much. People can check out your pieces in The Intercept and The Nation magazine, and, of course, in just about every publication that exists. But I know the hack. I know the Dayen hack, and that is...
Which is? The
Dayen hack is you go to... I got it right here. You go to your Tumblr site, daviddayen.tumblr.com, and then you got links to all of them there. That's my Dayen hack.
I do have that. That's the hack. And then the hack number 2, if you're too lazy to even type that in, is go to tinyletter.com. That's one word, tinyletter.com/David Dayen, one word, David Dayen, and sign up for my newsletter, which then comes to your email. You don't even have to go look for it. In your email, you will get an email twice a week with links to every one of my stories.
Can I give you a pro tip? On your About page on the Tumblr, how about a link to that tiny letter, that newsletter, which I also subscribe to?
This is why you have been my publicist for many, many years now.
False validation, buddy.
Because you have these ideas.
False.
You have these...
False validation. Think about it. All right, David Dayen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, buddy.
All right, Sam.
Talk
Thanks.
to you later. Bye. There you have it. Important things to keep a note on. Mnuchin is one of the guys that they're going to really go after. They're going to go after Betsy DeVos, and I think they're going to go after Pruitt big time.
Big league. Who's Pruitt again?
You know, Elizabeth Warren wrote something on her Facebook page addressing the criticism about voting for Ben Carson's nomination. Sherrod Brown has put out a statement. I've seen people defend it. The argument basically is, look, he's basically in paper and in person saying the right things. Can we trust him? Who knows? But at least we have some commitments that are benchmarks. If he doesn't become the Secretary of HUD, we could get somebody much, much worse. And I agree with that. You can't get somebody much less incompetent, much more incompetent. But you can get somebody who is much more determined to say, discriminate against people, to make housing worse. But here's why I don't buy that. Here's why I think what they're doing is just they are locked into an anachronistic mindset of how the Senate used to work and how our politics used to function. Because if they don't vote for Ben Carson is still going to be the Secretary of HUD. Unless somebody can show me the 3 Republican senators who are going to vote against Ben Carson, then they're full of it. Well, I'm going to take your silence as
no, they need to just oppose. They need to oppose.
Just vote no.
Period. Across
just
the board.
Just vote no for all of them.
And the notion, even just the notion that there are benchmarks with these people is anachronistic. Like Ben Carson. I mean, even specifically with Ben Carson, because he's not even going to give them lawyerly maneuvering.
But all you got to say with Ben Carson is totally unqualified. Anybody want to argue with that?
One sentence.
Nikki Haley?
Isn't that the way?
Totally unqualified.
Isn't that what Chris Coons said?
Mnuchin. He's lied to us. Betsy DeVos, it just came out that she did have experience in student loans.
Yeah.
From the debt collection side.
Of course.
I mean,
if you want to help get out of student loan crisis, what you can do is you can sign up for my husband's company, Amway, and make $1 million
Betsy
overnight.
DeVos, totally unqualified. These are not controversial statements. Scott Pruitt, it is called the Environmental Protection Agency. Scott Pruitt has never championed or articulated or suggested he has any interest in increasing protection for the environment. His entire agenda is to diminish protection for the environment to a point where he thinks it's more reasonable for business. That's his stated objective. To vote against these people, Mike Pompeo, vote against him. If you really need to hang on to this notion of you need to be seen as a serious person, vote for Mad Dog
Honestly, that's the only justifiable one.
Go vote for Mad Dog.
And even Kelly at Homeland Security, who's the other relatively-ish non-controversial one, in my opinion, and of course he's going to say this because he's Trump's appointee, but he says in testimony when he won't rule out implementing a Muslim registry, you got to vote no.
And frankly,
you must.
With Mattis, you just vote no because you don't think that
because you believe in civilian control
should be controlling of the. This is so straightforward, and
Tillerson.
I just think the idea that you as a senator, I guess I could buy it. If you're up for re-election, you're in a red state, and you've got horrible polling. But even then, the idea that your opponent is going to be able to say, like, you're just a knee-jerk partisan Democrat. Look, the bottom line is your fate in 2018 is contingent upon whether or not the lunatic in the White House and the Republican Party are popular, and whether or not you are far enough away from them if they're in the cellar. But if you give them the opportunity to say, well, yeah, Ben Carson screwed up, but they voted for him too. You've got to, this is your only bet, is that things are going to be so disastrous come 2018 that you're going to want to be able to draw a very bright, thick, even, what's that when you call it's like, when you not engrave something, but it's raised off the, come on, Kelly, you know what I'm talking about.
Embossed?
Yeah, I guess. Embossed line between you and the
Take that to
Republican.
the streets. Take that to the streets.
That's not what I was thinking about.
We have an
Bedazzled.
embossed position.
A bedazzled line. Yes.
I would say no on this one.
On the
as
bedazzled?
part of the comms team. I don't think that we want a bedazzled
I wouldn't say
opposition.
bedazzled. Maybe in certain
We should
parts
be
of it.
fabulous,
All right,
but not bedazzled.
coming up in the fun half of the program, we're going to play, I think, pretty close to the 10 minutes of insanity. Did you actually cut stuff out of this?
Yeah, there's about 15 minutes, and that's not even. It's not a.
What about the 10-minute one that I saw?
There's a few things from there. About like 75%
I may need
of that.
more than that because it's really crazy. It's really insane.
It's like we're taking a psychiatric intake.
It's, I mean, I don't know. I watched 10 minutes and completely changed my perspective of what may happen.
I
over
think
the
he's
next 6
getting
months.
really. I will say I do think he's getting really softened up for Jill Stein. Sorry.
Stop it.
It's 2020.
Stop it.
Well,
Here.
not entirely.
What
but
we
okay.
might do, Matt, just IM me and I'll send you this thing and maybe we'll then we're also going to talk about these sanctuary cities. This is really important. This is going to be a massive battle. And depending on where, I mean, you would be surprised. When we say sanctuary cities, it's not really just sanctuary. It's not just cities. It's counties. It's jurisdictions. Really is the way you need to look at this. You've got in California a bunch of different counties, obviously. There's one Arizona, South Tucson County. There's 4 states, which are sanctuary states: Connecticut, California, New Mexico, Colorado. And then, like I say, in California, they'll even redo it, be redundant on the county level. Colorado, obviously, all counties, and then they do it again. New Mexico, same deal. Florida, 7 counties. Georgia, 1 county. Illinois, 7 counties. Iowa, I don't know, tons of counties. Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, the city of Portland. Maryland has 2 counties and 1 city. Massachusetts, like I said, Nebraska, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, Nevada, New York, North Dakota, including some cities, right? Oregon, tons of counties. Pennsylvania, Texas, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, Wisconsin. All of these states have counties or cities that are sanctuary counties. And in fact, here is Marty Walsh, the mayor of Boston, making his announcement challenging Trump's executive order. And understand what the executive order does. The executive order denies federal grants to these cities. And my understanding is that police enforcement grants are exempt. But there's a whole nother, world of stuff, including FEMA emergency grants. So Trump, I think it was yesterday or the day before, okayed FEMA emergency funds to go to Georgia. But my understanding is that those funds have been slowed down because of this. There's a whole myriad of stuff, millions of dollars, billions of dollars nationwide. Attorney General Schneiderman in New York has said the president lacks the constitutional authority to cut off funding to states and cities because they have lawfully acted to protect immigrant families, as described in the legal guidance my office issued last week. He says, I urge President Trump to revoke this executive order right away. If he does not, I will do everything in my power to fight it. Obviously, lawsuits. Here is Marty Walsh from Boston.
To build our communities. 28% of the residents of the city of Boston are immigrants. 48% of our children, like myself, have at least one foreign-born parent. Boston was here for me and my family, and for as long as I am mayor, I will never turn my back on those who are seeking a better life. We will continue to foster trusting relationships between law enforcement and the immigrant community, and we will not waste vital police resources on misguided federal actions. We will not be intimidated by the threat to federal funding. We have each other's backs, and we have the Constitution of the United States of America on our side. I want to say directly to anyone who feels threatened today or vulnerable, you are safe in Boston. We will do everything lawful in our power to protect you. If necessary, we will use City Hall itself to shelter and protect anyone who's targeted unjustly. I want to say again, of all Boston into Washington, we will not retreat 1 inch from welcoming diverse global communities that made us one of the most successful cities in the world.
Here's there are obviously multiple reasons why we have sanctuary cities and states and counties and whatnot. Ranging from people feeling it's humane to there are business interests that say we need workers, rural areas where we need, farm workers, maybe construction workers, whatever it is, right? And there's a very good, obviously, there's a reason why we should allow these people to become citizens so that we can get them into the system. But the primary reason for this is public safety. For example, you hire a babysitter. They tell you they are documented. I don't know if anybody ever looks at the paperwork of their babysitters. Sometimes they just you just assume they are or not. They lock themselves out of your apartment. They had food on the stove. The baby they were caring for was left in the crib. They try and get back into the apartment. You are out of town. You are an hour away from your house. There is a fire. There is a stove with food cooking on it. Smoke starts to come out. These people are afraid of calling the police department. They hesitate. They don't call the fire department. They hesitate because they are afraid of getting in trouble with the authorities. This scenario can play out in any myriad of other ways. I'm witnessing a crime. I'm not going to report it because I don't want to be deported. I'm witnessing a fire. I don't want to say where I was or who I am. I mean, these are basic questions of safety, and that's why you have sanctuary cities. So when Trump attacks this, ostensibly because of, I guess, I don't know, one story or let's say 10 stories of criminals who also happen to be undocumented, killing somebody or hurting somebody, we're going to see there's a lot more danger involved in taking away this status. And sanctuary cities are just simply means that your immigration status is not relevant to local authorities. They will not pursue you if you basically perform the function of a citizen and report a crime or a safety issue. End of story. Feds do their job. They're the ones in charge of immigration status, and the local people do theirs. So I know we got to get to the fun half, but should we take this call from Ronald Reagan?
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. We'll take a call from Ronald Reagan just because I know he's a immigration attorney. Bear with us, folks. I hadn't called into this. We're going way long today with this. Hold on one second here. Is this Ronald Reagan?
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I called in and I was hearing some other caller.
Right.
Like rant about the show. There's something weird going on with your phones, but
that happens.
Hey, I don't know. It's weird, but I think I might make it out to that live show.
Okay.
And,
well, I picked you up on the call because you're in immigration. You know stuff about immigration, buddy. I'm talking about sanctuary.
Yeah.
Talking
but
about podcast performances.
I know. But Sam, I just
Podfest is April 8th in New York City, 1 p.m. We've got a show live.
I just need to know if I can crash at your place.
I can't hear you. We're having problems with the phones. Click.
Hey, let me talk real quick about what you were mentioning before, the visas for victims of crimes.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of those. They're really super important. They're also part of the Violence Against Women's Act.
What does that mean? Visas for victims of crimes? Victims of crimes in their home country?
No. So if you're a victim of a crime in the United States and you're undocumented and you're helpful to law enforcement in investigating or detecting the crime, then you might be eligible for a visa. One of the issues is that the local law enforcement has to sign off on a certification, and a lot of local law enforcement doesn't want to help illegals, as they would call them. And so, but others are very helpful in that, and they sign off, and then these people who are otherwise undocumented are able to become documented by virtue of their willingness to come forward and help the police report, by reporting domestic violence or whatever it might be. But one of the issues that immigration attorneys are looking at right now is the fact that, Republicans have had their sights on VAWA for a long time too. So right now it just feels like nothing is safe.
Right.
I wanted to say too, just real quick. And the sanctuary city, what I see is that really it's about local cities or municipalities saying, you know what, we're not going to spend our money to enforce federal law, or if we are, we're going to do it in a limited or a tailored way. And when I see people comment on, the newspaper or on Facebook about sanctuary cities, they somehow think it's like a big liberal program that's going to cost the city money, and it's the exact opposite. So the left all over the immigration issue is just failing spectacularly when it comes to the rhetoric of the debate. Even on things like the wall, like instead of saying, well, first of all, Democrats have just said, yeah, we are also for a wall for the longest time. And now they're saying, well, it's expensive, it's hard, instead of just saying it doesn't work. So anyways, there's just so much misinformation out there. But the scariest thing from yesterday to me was the idea that they're going to create a registry of undocumented or out-of-status immigrants who've committed crimes, and they're going to publish it, I guess, on a regular basis. And I don't know if you've seen this, but that's something that they do on Stormfront, which is this white nationalist website. They have at the top of their website, I guess, tabs or stickies where they have reports of Muslim crimes, black crimes, Latino crimes. And some people are suggesting that this idea was, directly lifted from Stormfront. And whether it was or not, this is exactly what, we throw Hitler around, but this is exactly what Hitler would do. Like, look at these Jewish crimes. Look at how horrible they are and how much worse they are than regular old German crimes.
Right, exactly.
And
instead of doing all crimes, we're just going to, and of course, this is how people absorb information, right? If you only see statistics and examples of crimes from one particular ethnicity or status, you're just going to presume that's what crime is.
Right. And it's one thing to say, you know what, we're for strict enforcement of the law, and there's going to be some victims of that, but that's just our philosophy. It's another thing to couple it with this kind of nationalistic bullshit and to say we're for strict enforcement because the people we have to enforce the law against are terrible monsters. And so it's really, really terrifying. The broadening of the definition of criminal alien now is this umbrella that covers virtually everyone, even people who haven't committed crimes. There's a provision in the order that says if an ICE officer thinks you committed a crime, then you're a criminal alien. So, it's totally out of control. And I have to wonder about people like my congressman who in multiple occasions has laughed out loud at the idea of a wall. There's not going to be a wall, even after the election, and who the economic interests of our particular area depend on these people. And so that's, I think, where the tension's going to be, like you were mentioning, the tension between the economic interests, which literally depend on these types of people to do these types of work, and these enforcement nuts like Chris Kobach and Steve King and the president. So it'll be interesting. Don't want to take up too much of your time. Take care. Thanks. Sam.
All right.
Bye.
Ronald Reagan. All right, we're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half. Remember, it is your membership that makes this show possible. You can become a member today at Join the Majority Report. Also, give us a review on iTunes. If you want to gift the show to somebody, just simply go to majoritygift.com. Super easy to do. Majoritygift.com. We will tell you more about the live show. It's 4 months away. 3 months away, so we got some time. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. If you buy crap from Amazon, buy it through our link at majorityreportkickback.com. Majorityreportkickback.com. Click on that link, buy your stuff through there. We get a kickback. All right, see you in the fun half. 646-257-3920. People know the number. We already got 10 calls stacked up. Go to the IMs. We got a lot of sound. It's Thursday.
True. That's a great point.
Our president's a total lunatic.
That's a great point. But unfair. Totally unfair.
Bye-bye. We are back. Sam Seder on the. This is the majority report, right? Yeah. Let's see. I'm seeing a little bit of a pushback on the idea that the resignations from the State Department are as huge as they are meant to be. They're being reported. Not sure about this, though. I'm just looking at different people who... CNN is now reporting that the State Department management officials didn't resign, but were fired. And then others are saying that it was... CNN is saying this. Others are saying that's spin.
Sounds like spin.
Well, we don't know.
Yeah, CNN, I don't trust them at all.
I don't know. But I think this is just like I don't know. My sense is this is just sort of the beginning of this. Like every day is going to be a story, not every day, but every other day is going to be a story not terribly dissimilar. Someone else is jump ship because the president is a lunatic.
Wait, you said Tiffany looks better than Ivanka? Fired. You want to enforce civil rights? Fired.
Here is... Well, I don't know if I want to go into this interview quite yet. Well, I guess we will. Let me just take one phone call, and then we'll go into... You calling from a 610 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hello?
Hey, Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Who's this?
This is Dell from Philly.
What's happening, Del? What's on your mind?
I don't know. I'm just frustrated because feel like I'm seeing two sides of the Democratic Party. I feel like post-election, some people are trying to understand and make excuses for the Trump voter. And then on the other side of the Democratic Party, I feel like there's some people that aren't willing to admit that there are problems within kind of the Democratic Party that lost us this election. So I just wanted to know
there are
your thoughts on bridging the two are, because you see a lot of like town halls on CNN kind of dismissing kind of the xenophobia that actually helped Trump win the election.
Look, I mean, I think on the left, broadly speaking, not necessarily within the Democratic Party, on the left, broadly speaking, people have different narratives about what happened in the election, because they want a specific lesson to be learned, because they want the party to move in the direction of their ideological preference, right? So that's the first thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
The second is that there's also people associated, particularly associated more with the Clinton campaign, who have financial interests in that. Not just, and I don't mean to be like it's strictly that, but it's like,
yeah,
I'm not going to say that the group that I was part of, completely and utterly failed, was vacuous, because I mean, I'm not going to have any job anymore, and I've been, I think, pretty clear on the different reasons I think that Clinton lost, that range from some of which, were articulated prior to the election that still are standing, and then some, I think, which were clear following the election. But at the end of the day, the Democratic Party is going to move in the direction, not so much about, who makes the best argument for the mainstream media at this point. It's really just like, this is really in the hands, I think, to a large extent, of people who just, how engaged will they get? And where will they be on the political spectrum? I mean, one of the things we're going to do in the newsletter this week is send out, I think, 3 or 4 different organizations that have started and means in which to influence your congresspeople to get directly involved. And I think at the end of the day, the direction of the party is going to be a function of that. In the meantime, I think the Democrats are doing a bad job at fighting against this. And I think to a certain, and by this, I mean, I don't think the Democrats should fight exclusively against Trump. Now, I think they should fight against what Trump's existence allows to happen on the congressional side. The problem with that, and that's a reflection partly of my political preference, but it's also a reflection of this is what I do professionally. I can see what's happening in a way that I think more casual observers, and I'm saying people who don't listen to this show, frankly, or engage in any sort of like regular political education. There's a lot of people who are activated now. Many of those people who went down to that march, sure, the vast, overwhelming majority of them voted for Clinton. But they weren't terribly engaged in politics. And the thing is that they think they are now because they are so strongly anti-Trump. But that's not being engaged with politics, right? Like there's not.
I agree with that.
They are rightfully and justifiably mad and angry and engaged because Trump is a xenophobe. He's a nationalist. He's a racist. he's a misogynist. And then he's an idiot. He's insane. To the extent that he's mentioned any policies, they don't like them. But to get really engaged in politics at this point is to also understand, like, the problem is with the Republican Party, and they are using Trump as, they are using Trump as basically a cipher for all of their policies, and their policies are incredibly destructive. And people, the next step after that is you say, well, what policies should we have instead? And those policies got to go beyond, where we were with Barack Obama. And I think that's a lot for people who are just getting involved in politics in a meaningful way to fully absorb. And frankly, that's one of the reasons why I wanted Hillary Clinton to win, was because you don't have to go through those first 2 or 3 steps to get to how do we move forward with our policies? How do we get better than the Affordable Care Act? And now we're 3 or 4 steps behind that to, like, how do we defend the Affordable Care Act? How do we defend Medicaid? How do we defend Medicare? How do we defend Social Security?
Yeah, good luck with that when my wife's already started a war with Russia day one.
I mean, so but yes, do I think the Democratic Party is weak, is particularly weak in these situations? Definitely, because I followed them quite carefully for the first 8 years of this century. And it's a problem. And I don't know. I mean, who's the Democratic leader right now? Like, who would you say? Like, who's the most obvious leader? Nominally, it should be Chuck Schumer. I think he seems to be all but absent, and I don't particularly like his politics.
Jerry Brown.
Jerry Brown. I mean, he's not in a position to coordinate anything nationally, but just in terms of, like, maybe
being out front and center
symbolically,
with some power base. Well, he has some power base as governor of California.
Yeah. Elizabeth Warren. Bernie's not technically a Democrat, but he's
a leader. He's a leader of a party he refuses to be a member of, which makes me like him even more.
And frankly, I don't think Bernie's. I mean, what's compelling about Bernie are his positions, and the integrity he's shown in hewing to those positions for 30, 40 years. But he's not. People around Washington are like, this guy's the greatest organizer and leader. No, he's basically been a loner, and I think he's making adjustments. I know that he's staffing up in ways that are very encouraging. So I may have gone a little far afield on your question, but that was my answer.
Okay.
All right, bye. One more call, and then we will go play this video. Calling from a 210 area code. Who's this?
Good afternoon, Sam. It's John from San Antonio. How
John
you doing?
from San Antonio. How do you feel about the Democrats? How do you think they're doing so far?
They're not doing too good. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, they should be blocking everything. So, I mean, I'm disappointed in Warren. I don't know what she's doing. I understand, it could be somebody worse, but I mean, Ben Carson is just, he's totally unqualified.
But could it be somebody worse, though? I mean, could it be someone worse? You would know as well as anybody. Could it be someone worse? Once he's nominated, could it really be someone worse? Who's going to vote against him in the Republican Party?
Well, that's true. I mean, you're right. I mean, all these people seem like they're going in, including Mulvaney, and I think Mulvaney is one of the most insane people to ever be there when he talks about the debt ceiling and when he talks about how he's going to talk to Trump about possibly raising or not raising the debt ceiling.
Right.
I mean, that is totally insane. And it's a like when people, I mean, I know that everybody has a deluge of all this negative information and it's hard to decipher everything. But I mean, that to me is just, I just don't understand why Right, because I mean we have the largest economy in the world, and basically he's saying we're going to put a suicide vest on and blow up a whole economy over nothing. I mean the debt is nothing, and Japan has a 229%, debt to GDP ratio, which is over twice of what ours is, and nobody talks about Japan.
Right.
The problem with that. I mean this is just all scaremongering to try to basically cut entitlements.
Exactly.
I mean, cut the social safety net.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I just don't see why people don't see through this. So I want to talk a little bit about the Robert Reich piece that you talked about the guy who said that they were going to, the Republicans said, he was just so casual about saying, oh, we're going to impeach Trump and put Pence in place. I just don't think that people realize how people are really acquiescing to Trump. I mean, just Paul Ryan is just the latest. I just saw it, just less than an hour ago. How he before he was talking about no, we don't need an investigation of voter fraud. Now he's saying, yeah, we should have an investigation into it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is astounding. And so, I mean, eventually, at what point are they going to say, this guy is really, really bringing us down? And if they do that, that's going to have an impact on their electoral chances in both 2018 and 2020. And so for people to think that it's not, Republicans are saying, oh, we're just going to impeach him and it's not going to be a problem. I mean, people people really don't like that. I mean, I was just looking at some latest numbers. They were talking about the best president in a Quinnipiac poll and the worst president. And most people say the worst president was Nixon. I mean, this is the current population, and that was because he was impeached. And and so I mean, Trump will probably do something that's so much worse. I mean, than Nixon. I mean, what he's doing already is so awful. And so, I mean, if they don't think that's going to bring down the Republican Party, they're insane. I remember Taibbi was talking on one of the early, I guess it was from February. It was replayed, I think, over the Thanksgiving break. And he was talking about this. He was saying if Trump wins, he's going to bring the Republican Party down.
Right.
And so that is really... I mean, we need to be vigilant. The people have talked. I agree with what you were saying to the last caller. People, they say they're involved in politics, but they're really not. They need to get more involved in the issues. Very good point. And so,
John, let me ask you
also
this. Let me ask you this. I agree that the impeachment is a lot messier than people seem to think it is. And that's why I think that they would never even contemplate impeachment before 2018, because they get in with 2018. There's too much at stake for them, right? And it's not like Trump can't do certain things during impeachment and they could leverage things. Who knows? But there's also one other thing that I hadn't really taken seriously until I saw this interview. We're going to play it in a bit. But the 25th Amendment of the Constitution, Section 4, I want to read the first paragraph. I know you know it, John, okay? But Section 4, whenever the Vice President and majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress. So let's just break this down. It's Pence and the majority of the principal officers. So basically the majority of the cabinet, 7, 8 people, or the majority of the principal officers of Congress, which would I presume, I'm not exactly sure what is the definition of that. There must be somewhere maybe, but I would imagine it's like the House Majority Leader, the Speaker of the House, maybe the whips, maybe the Minority Leader, I don't know, transmit to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. The Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting President. Now, I don't know what Trump has to do for them to feel confident that they could sell this to the American public. But after watching that interview, I'm not sure they're going to be wanting for too many examples. I mean, for all we know, I mean, maybe the tape drops, right? Maybe the PP tape drops. Maybe Donald Trump is found wandering around naked in front of the front lawn of the White House. I don't know. But this is another, this is just one thing that I think, like, now I look at this interview and I just think there's some credence here to this. But go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I just think that this is something that they. I think that they could actually do this before 2018 if his numbers get so bad. You say, give everybody 6 months and all the Jill Stein people will start realizing, what a mistake that they made. I mean, what do you think his numbers are going to be at? Approval ratings. I mean, right now, he just got a Quinnipiac poll where he's at 36. This came out today. Where do you think he's going to be at in 6 months?
Unfair, fake.
I don't think that I would be shocked if anything, if he could ever get a number below, 25.
25 is locked in.
I feel like there's just, what is it? There's 20 to 25% authoritarians in this country, according to research. So, but that's pretty low. But he's still effective for the Republicans who control the House and the Senate, right? I mean, if he's at that number, but we'll see, John.
All right.
Appreciate the call.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Sure thing.
All right. Let's get to this video because this is, and I'm going to stop it. We'll. But here's how it starts. They're walking. This is the ABC interview. Now, understand, the entire interview is 30 minutes. This is just one clip up front and then a section of the interview that's all in probably about 10 minutes. But I watched this morning and I was like, this guy is insane. Here's the first part. Because here's why I think this. There were crazy things he did throughout the campaign, but there was always, you could always come up with a rationale as to why he's doing it. Like, it's effective. He knows he's trying to be, a wrestling character.
It's fun.
It's a wrestling character.
I'm a jackass.
He's getting carried away. Maybe he's had too much, sinus medication, whatever it was. At any given point, there was always some reasonable expectation. I'm saying there is a baseline of insanity that, people who try to become the president have. And so, let's watch some of this stuff and we'll stop it. And I think you'll get a sense of why this goes maybe a little bit further.
President, I know you're only 5 days in. Has it changed you?
I don't want to change too much. I've had a wonderful life and wonderful success. I want to make this a great success for the American people and for the people that put me in this position. So I don't want to change too much. I can be the most presidential person ever, other than possibly the great Abe Lincoln, all right? But I can be the most presidential person, but I may not be able to do the job nearly as well if I do that.
Your predecessor...
All right, pause it for a second. This, to me, is just sort of like Sarah Palin-esque. This is just a guy who's just dumb.
This is basic stupidity and bullshit.
I mean, I'm just trying to think what's in his head, being presidential. I think what he means is tall and looking like you're on a penny.
No, and not...
Reserved.
He has a vague understanding.
Reserved.
You can't insult people on Twitter.
Right.
You got to have a certain decorum.
Right. I think he's doing that. I think he doesn't probably understand what made Lincoln such a great president. Had more to do with the huge Civil War thing and trying to bring the country together.
He is big time into war, though. He's very militaristic.
I just don't think he probably knew that. But that's just run-of-the-mill stuff. But now we get to watch him show that he is really, really completely not just could give a crap about his family, because, you know, we can all understand that, different days of the week and whatnot, but not conscious of the fact that he has to pretend. That he has to pretend even. That's how little he cares about his family that is on exhibit here. Still, we're not at the level of insanity. This is just sort of like the appetizer. This is sort of the ramp up.
Used to talk often about finishing the day to get to his family upstairs, the stairwell's right over here, to have dinner with them. And I know that the First Lady, Melania, has a big job back in New York taking care of Barron.
She does, yes.
Does it make it a lonely place for you at the end of the day?
No, because I end up working longer, and that's okay. I mean, I'm working long hours. I mean, the country has a lot of problems.
He says, so there you have it. He doesn't even throw in like, well, obviously, I miss my family terribly. And on one hand, it gives me an opportunity to focus on the many problems I see the country has. But I do, of course, I miss my family every day, and thank gosh for Skype. Whatever it is.
On the one hand, you do miss being urinated on by your wife, but then on the other, you get more work done. So it's complicated.
One of the things I'm having them do is actually hook up the sprinkler system into the plumbing system here at the White House, and so I get a little bit of that. So there it is. This is all, in my mind, run-of-the-mill stuff. Total narcissism, complete lack of understanding of historical context, disdain for his current wife and the child they had together.
The basics.
The basics. This is the basics. That's what we call baseline Trump. Now let's move into non-baseline Trump. When he went to the CIA and he stood in front of their version of the Arlington Memorial and talked about how smart he was because he had an uncle who taught at MIT, and when he talked about how big the crowds were and whatnot.
He was in a lab, okay? Pretty smart.
And I thought, okay, that's really obnoxious. That's really over the top. That's really misguided. He made a mistake, narcissistic, but it's also smart. He knows there's a lot of controversy with him and the CIA. He figures he can go and tell a lie like this was all created by the media because he's actually speaking to his voters. He doesn't want to talk to the CIA. And
get the headlines.
He's going to get the headlines, and he's getting his message across, getting it validated by saying it in front of the CIA. They brought in the clackers, those paid clappers, and, he started talking about the standing O he got.
Imagine that audience, like, hey, what are you doing here today? I'm a 20-year veteran of the CIA. I focus on the Middle East. Before that, I was working around security issues in Latin America. My name's Bob, and I'm here to cheer for Mr. Trump because he's going to make America great again.
Well, I think they were just staffers from they were just campaign staffers.
Right,
hanging around. And so that all made sense. And even him claiming like they were giving me a standing O, and in fact, they were not basically... They have to be told to be basically, at ease by the president, sit down, and he didn't. So all that, even after that speech, I thought, okay, this is not insane. He's just an a-hole and incredibly cynical and craven. All right. I needed to preface that before we start watching this stuff, which I think is just completely off the wall. He's sitting in a room. It's a one-on-one interview with... this animatron who delivers the news for ABC. And, usually I would like to see like, hey, can't you just ask him about things like sanctuary cities or, as David Dayen said today, drain the swamp. You made certain promises about lobbyists, blah, blah, blah. But actually, I think this was rather fruitful.
Mr. President, I just have one more question on this, and it's bigger picture. You took some heat after your visit to the CIA in front of that hallowed wall, 117 stars of those lost at the CIA. You talked about other things, but you also talked about crowd size at the inauguration, about the size of your rallies, about covers on Time magazine. And I just want to ask you, when does all of that matter Just a little less. When do you let it roll off your back now that you're the president?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked. So I went to the CIA, my first step. I have great respect for the people in intelligence and CIA. I don't have a lot of respect for, in particular, one of the leaders, but that's okay. But I have a lot of respect for the people in the CIA. That speech was a home run. That speech, if you look at Fox, okay, I'll mention it in your network, see what Fox said. They said it was one of the great speeches. They showed the people applauding and screaming, and they were all CIA. There was nobody. Somebody was asking Sean, well, were they Trump people that were? We don't have Trump people. They were CIA people. That location was given to me. Mike Pence went up before me, paid great homage to the wall. I then went up, paid great homage to the wall. I then spoke to the crowd. I got a standing ovation.
You would give the same speech if you went back?
Absolutely.
In front of that wall?
People loved it. They loved it. They gave me a standing ovation for a long period of time. They never even sat down, most of them, during the speech. There was love in the room. You and other networks covered it very inaccurately. I hate to say this to you, and you probably won't put it on, but turn on Fox and see how it was covered and see how people respond to that speech. That speech was a good speech. And you and a couple of other networks tried to downplay that speech, and it was very, very unfortunate that you did.
Okay.
He's a fucking lunatic.
Now, you're not going to play this. Like, dude, you're the president of the United States.
Now, I know you're not going to play this, but I'll just say it.
You're losing your mind. You're losing your mind in front of them. This is where I think, like, where, you know, why I think this was really insane. He doesn't seem to understand any of the most sort of basic context in which he's sitting. Like, he doesn't seem to understand that he's not campaigning. He's the president. You're not going to, I know you're not going to put this on. What? Like, I'm starting to realize, like, the whole rhetoric about him thinking that he's getting unfair coverage and everybody's out to get him.
No, he believes that.
That's not for his voters' consumption.
That's for his consumption.
That is him. Like, it is.
And that is why I think he has a genuine mind meld with a certain part of the electorate. Because they are privileged, aggrieved people who are insane and have a completely inverse relationship to reality. And he's not just hustling them. Maybe he actually thinks that Trump University helped people become millionaires in real estate.
I think it's possible.
Like, that's the next step of him.
But he brags about how they gave me that spot. They gave it to me. They let me be there. We paid our homage. I hit a home run. A home run in that speech. What? What are you talking about? And he may not, maybe nobody has told him that he was supposed to tell them to sit down. Maybe he doesn't know, but he's not aware of what's going on in that interview. He's not aware, like, I'm the president, I'm being interviewed. They're going to leave some of this stuff out.
They're going to leave that on the shot. They're going to leave that on the floor.
Right.
I'm exploited by ABC all the time.
Now, is this the clip that I sent you? That I IM'd you? Yes. Okay. So let it run from there. Okay. Because I thought we were just going to run through that whole thing.
You go to you go look at MSNBC. I'll mention that even though I'm on your network, but you're not going to show it.
But Sean told me this.
But Rachel told me this.
Like,
I'm just saying that's the new.
Because in his mind, like, everybody knows Sean. It's Sean.
Sean, he's our friend.
2 million Americans watch Sean Hannity. You didn't say Sean. Like, for most Americans,
more than 2 million people live in this country.
Who's he talking about? Sean.
Wait, how many people live on the whole planet?
Wait, Sean.
I just have one more question on this, and it's bigger picture. You took some heat.
Did it very inaccurately.
Okay, so we'll just go past that. Okay, and was there stuff before that? Yeah, let's go to the stuff before that. Yeah, I want to go through all of it. I'll take this call. It's calling from an 847 area code. Who's this?
Hi, it's Josh.
Josh, what's on your mind?
This is not about Trump necessarily, but did you guys hear the story? First of all, actually, I just became a member.
Hold on. Take that, young man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Tulsi Gabbard met with Assad the other day.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the story.
I
What
haven't.
the fuck is her problem?
I have no response to that. You have completely encapsulated my feelings. I think that there is a really, really big problem, and I think that hopefully Murtaza Hussein was helpful for some people in the sense that this weird convergence between people who have an odd sympathy with either Russia or Assad and a complete reduction of all opposition to Assad down to all being terrorist groups. And she clearly believes that. I mean, that's her foreign policy view. And I think it's certainly a little unseemly to meet with a guy at a time when he's, I mean,
I got to
you can
imagine.
have
I got to
meeting-
imagine this was sanctioned by
Of course.
the.
That's what
that
I'm
she
sure
was
that's
like
what
an
they.
emissary.
That's what they talked about.
Yeah.
I would imagine when he met with her a couple weeks ago. And the thing is, like, even from a cynical perspective, Assad and people around him are obviously going to be part of any kind of negotiated settlement. That's reality. But there's no need to have a backdoor emissary to allow that to happen. That means there's a whole other level of negotiation that's on the table that's much worse than just a negotiated settlement.
Yes. I mean, who knows what's behind that? And I mean, who knows? I mean, we could probably take guesses as to basically him saying, like, go there, tell them whatever I say publicly not to listen to. This is what we're doing.
They're going to be overtly pro-Assad. I mean, there's just no. It makes complete sense. And again, another thing that was important about Murtaza is that even the Obama administration, with all these people's constant fantasies that he secretly was hell-bent on war, we've basically been kind of indirectly pro-Assad for at least 2 years now to begin with. Now it's just going to get more formalized.
So I guess that's a long way of saying I have no fucking idea. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, no. Okay, thank you so much.
Right. All right, let's get back.
Beaky Bar. Tulsi Gabbard.
One more caller. Calling from a 570 number, and then we're going to get back to that tape. 570.
Hey, Sammy.
Yes.
Hey, I think we can all agree that Sean Spicer doesn't have the legs for this job. I mean, he's burning. It seems like he's burning himself out.
Dude,
so that leads me to ask the question: who would replace him?
I will be
person
making a
would
pretty
take
significant announcement in a couple of weeks.
Well, see, this is why I'm calling.
Let me tell
This
you
is
about
actually
tell
what-
you about how the negotiations went down. They approached Michael. Michael said, "I'm only going to do it as right-wing Mandela."
That's my integrity.
No, no, Sam. I have the guy.
Okay.
The guy is someone who was a producer of a reality TV show. Had somewhat of an acting career. Was a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Can do a good 20 minutes. And had a reality TV show with a political bent to it. And that guy's you, Sammy.
Oh.
I think you should take over.
Well,
definitely.
If I'm offered it, I will certainly contemplate the opportunity. I mean, it would be interesting to get into the White House, and if I didn't have to sign an NDA, it is the type of job I would take. But
yeah, well, I mean, like,
but look, I got to jump. I appreciate the call. I mean, I think it's something. Let me ruminate on it. I just don't feel like
we're all available.
I mean, on one hand, I'd obviously have to, I wouldn't see my family. So
Well, that's a plus.
That's going for it. But, oh, come on. I'm just teasing.
All
right. So let's get back to this tape. And I think Sean Spicer's not the only one who's like, if Pompeo and Mattis are talking about this, they didn't hear about the black sites and the torture. Like, it's quite possible that, and I think there's a story out there now that's just come out where nobody associated with any of these executive agencies that are directly impacted by these executive orders have been consulted at all. Like, it's quite possible that when what's-his-face gets up there, Tom Price, and says, like, I haven't been consulted about all the plans for rollout of health insurance. Maybe he hasn't.
That's the one thing I'm actually not lying
Maybe
about,
it's just
Mr. Chairman.
Bannon. Maybe it's just Bannon writing this stuff out.
I'm hoping that Mr. Bannon doesn't hurt my stock portfolio and what he's doing.
You know, we keep saying, like, is Bannon, you know, is his Operation Chaos that we have anticipated, we're not seeing, but maybe we are seeing it. It's just that sometimes the natural inertia of institutions, of organizations, of groups of people, it takes a while for that to break down, right? Momentum takes you in a certain direction. But
it was a huge fucking crowd. They are lying. It is a complete lie, a total lie. It was a great fucking inauguration, big league inauguration, and frankly, the press is lying.
It was a home run. My speech.
Why would he say anything different at CIA? He knocked it out of the park. They were salivating. They wanted more.
I give it back to you. My home run.
All right. So here is more of that ABC interview, which has got me convinced that our president is literally insane.
A lot of problems, and President Trump tonight on the controversial moves he's made already.
Mr. President, I want to start. We're 5 days in, and your campaign promises. I know today you plan on signing the order to build the wall.
Correct.
Are you going to direct U.S. funds to pay for this wall? Will American taxpayers pay for the wall?
Ultimately, it'll come out of what's happening with Mexico. We're going to be starting those negotiations relatively soon, and we will be in a form reimbursed by Mexico, which I've always said.
So they'll pay us back?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So the American taxpayer will pay for the wall at first?
All it is we'll be reimbursed at a later date from whatever transaction we make from Mexico. Now, I could wait a year and I could hold off the wall, but I want to build the wall. We have to build the wall. We have to stop drugs from pouring in. We have to stop people from just pouring into our country. We have no idea where they're from. And I campaigned on the wall, and it's very important, but that wall will cost us nothing.
But you talked often about Mexico paying for the wall, and you again say they'll pay us back. Mexico's president said in recent days that Mexico absolutely will not pay, adding that it goes against our dignity as a country and our dignity as Mexicans. He says, quite simply, they're not paying.
David, I think he has to say that. He has to say that. But I'm just telling you, there will be a payment. It will be in a form, perhaps a complicated form. And you have to understand, what I'm doing is good for the United States. It's also going to be good for Mexico.
What are you going to say to some of your supporters who might say, wait a minute, I thought Mexico was going to pay for this right at the start?
Well, I'd say very simply that they are going to pay for it. I never said they're going to pay from the start. I said Mexico will pay for the wall.
When does construction begin?
As soon as we can physically do it. We're
within months?
I would say in months, yeah. I would say in months. Certainly planning is starting immediately.
I want to ask about undocumented immigrants who are
okay,
here.
Now hold it for 1 second. Now this part, up to this point, seems to me to be just...
back to base.
Yes, just classic Trump. I think what he's referring to in terms of like complicated, the money will come from things around Mexico is his way of saying like, we're going to put tariffs on stuff and that's going to pay up, well, you know, fees, crossing the border, whatever. And that's how he's going to pay for it. So this is actually the beginning of the interview. The CIA stuff came a little bit later because you can see the progression of the insanity. So now he's being asked about actual attacks on DACA, DAPA, the Dreamers. And you can hear him now, like, now he's in an area that he's not quite as comfortable with, and he sort of forgets that he's not king because it's not, you know, him being benevolent is not really the issue with these people, but as if he's like, bring in the next one. You can sort of stay. You're going to have to go. Next. All right, go.
Who are here in this country. Right now, they're protected as so-called dreamers, the children who were brought here, as you know, by their parents. Should they be worried that they could be deported? And is there anything you can say to assure them right now that they'll be allowed to stay?
They shouldn't be very worried. They are here illegally. They shouldn't be very worried. I do have a big heart. We're going to take care of everybody. We're going to have a very strong border. We're going to have a very solid border where you have great people that are here that have done a good job. They should be far less worried. We'll be coming out with policy on that over the next period of 4 weeks.
So, Mr. President, will they be allowed to stay?
I'm going to tell you over the next 4 weeks.
I want to ask you about
All right,
something
pause.
you said this.
So they shouldn't be worried. Well, no, he didn't say they shouldn't be worried. They shouldn't be too worried. You should be somewhat worried, but not too worried. I'm a nice guy. We'll see. Okay, this is still, again, to me, it's not insanity. It's just ridiculousness.
You're deported, but here's a Trump water.
Exactly.
On the way out. I have a heart.
I've got you a Trump steaks.
Trump steaks, little mini Trump steaks
one of
for the kids.
Ivanka's bags that she's marketing, the low end version, the one that's going to go to Target. Okay, so then he moves on into this.
4 weeks.
I want to ask you about something you said this week right here at the White House. You brought in congressional leaders to the White House. You spoke at length about the presidential election with them, telling them that you lost the popular vote because of millions of illegal votes, 3 to 5 million illegal votes. That would be the biggest electoral fraud in American history. Where is the evidence of that?
So let me tell you, first of all, it was so misrepresented. That was supposed to be a confidential meeting, and you weren't supposed to go out and talk to the press as soon as you were. But the Democrats viewed it not as a confidential
But
meeting.
you have
They went out
tweeted
and
about
talked.
the millions
Let me
of
explain.
illegal
Sure you do, and I do, and I'm very,
votes before.
and I mean it. But just so you know, it was supposed to be a confidential meeting. They turned it into a not a confidential. Number two, the conversation lasted for about a minute. They made it, somebody said it was like 25% of the, it wasn't, it was hardly even discussed. I said it, and I said it strongly, because what's going on with voter fraud is horrible. That's number one. Number two, I would have won the popular vote if I was campaigning for the popular vote.
All right, pause it for 1 second. So let's just understand where his number one was. His number one was, nobody was supposed to hear about that. I barely mentioned it. It was something completely in passing. I said it strongly, but it was completely in passing. And nobody should even, as if he's basically saying, like, it's a waste of time to talk about this, right? He realizes that maybe he got a little bit carried away in this closed-door session with Congress. He wanted to, and so it's a complete waste of time. Now, number two, I'm going to actually tack back and make the argument I was making to those guys that would only existed for like a minute. Like they said it was 25% of what I said. No, it wasn't 25% of what I said. It was actually like closer to 7% what I said. In fact, let me make the argument now. So this is like closer to 30% of this.
This shouldn't even be out in public. All right, now let's explain it.
I would have gone to California, where I didn't go at all. I would have gone to New York, where I didn't campaign at all. I would have gone to a couple of places that I didn't go to. And I would have won that much easier than winning the Electoral College. But as you know, the Electoral College is all that matters. It doesn't make any difference. With that being said, if you look at voter registration, you look at the dead people that are registered to vote, who vote, you look at people that are registered in 2 states, you look at all of these different things that are happening with registration, you take a look at those registration forms.
Pause it for 1 second. This is the other thing that I noticed about this. I want you to go back. Just like, yeah. All right, I want you to watch this carefully if you're watching it. Watch his eyes. He keeps turning his eyes from the camera to the interviewer. And he does this throughout the interview, right there. It's very, he's extremely conscious that he's on camera. And there's a sense that like he's digging a hole and there's a panic that's going on here that is completely not necessary. He's the president. He's got a fairly benign interviewer. Yeah. And he could simply say, look, that was something I said in confidence. It's been misreported. It's completely not important. I'm the president. I'm going to move forward. And he can't even say that. He doesn't have the self-control. He's out of control here.
I would have gone to a couple of places that I didn't go to, and I would have won that much easier than winning the Electoral College. But as you know, the Electoral College is all that matters. It doesn't make any difference. With that being said, If you look at voter registration, you look at the dead people that are registered to vote, who vote, you look at people that are registered in 2 states, you look at all of these different things that are happening with registration, you take a look at those registration, you're going to find, and we're going to do an investigation on it.
But 3 to 5 million illegal votes.
Well, we're going to find out, but it could very well be that much. You have people that are registered who are dead, who are illegals, who are in 2 states. You have people registered in 2 states. They're registered in New York and in New Jersey. They vote twice. There are millions of votes, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to do an investigation.
You're
David,
now president of the United States. When you
well,
say
of course, and I want the voting process to be legitimate.
But
now,
what I'm asking, when you say, in your opinion, millions of illegal votes, that is something that is extremely fundamental to our functioning democracy, a fair and free election.
Sure.
You say you're going to launch an investigation into this.
Done.
What you have presented so far has been debunked. It's been called false.
Take a look at the Pew reports.
I called the author of the Pew report last night, and he told me that they found no evidence of voter fraud.
Really? Then why did he write the report?
He said no evidence of voter fraud.
Excuse me. Then why did he write the report?
So
According to Pew report, then he's groveling again. You know, I always talk about the reporters that grovel when they want to write something that you want to hear, but not necessarily millions of people want to hear or have to hear.
So you've launched an investigation.
We're going to launch an investigation to find out. And then the next time, and I will say this, of those votes cast, none of them come to me. None of them come to me. They would all be for the other side. None of them come to me. But when you look at the people that are registered, dead, illegal, and 2 states, and some cases maybe 3 states, we have a lot to look into.
House Speaker Paul Ryan has said, I have seen no evidence. I have made this very, very clear. Senator Lindsey Graham saying it's the most inappropriate thing for a president to say without proof. He seems obsessed with the idea that he could not have possibly lost the popular vote without cheating and fraud. I want to ask you about something bigger here. Does it matter more now?
There's nothing bigger. There's nothing bigger.
But it's important because
let me just tell you, you know what's important? Millions of people agree with me when I say that. If you would have looked on one of the other networks and all of the people that were calling in, they're saying, we agree with Mr. Trump, we agree. They're very smart people.
Let me just ask you, you did win. You're the president. You're sitting across from me right now.
That's true.
Do you think that your words matter more now?
Yes, very much.
Do you think that talking about millions of illegal votes is dangerous to this country
No, not
without
at all.
presenting the
Not
evidence?
at all, because many people feel the same way that I do. And
you don't think it undermines your credibility if there's no
not
evidence?
at all, because they didn't come to me, believe me. Those were Hillary votes.
Mr. President.
All right. So there you have it. I mean, this guy cannot, there's nothing bigger. There's nothing bigger than the fact that all these votes went to Hillary and I'm not perceived. He cannot control himself. It's literally like this ABC guy is just saying, like, can't we get past this, of course? No, we can't get past this.
This is the thing.
This is the thing. All right, let's
they
go
need
to
to
the
have
other...
a mechanism in place to distract him from launching a nuke with Twitter. Like, hey, before we do that, Mr. President, I heard that Rosie O'Donnell said that you have a small penis. Oh, okay, we'll forget it. We won't nuke Ukraine then.
I just want to say
there's more after the CIA stuff, right? All right, let's pull up these two. I want to just do these. Here is. Was there no more sitting down after the CIA thing? Okay, so we did both ends of that. Here is Trump just walking along, talking about the nuclear codes.
No, my family, I don't care. Want to talk nukes?
Let me ask you, right after the oath of office, they give you the nuclear codes, the biscuit. Sobering moment?
When they explain what it represents and the kind of destruction that you're talking about, it is a very sobering moment. Yes, it's very, very, very scary in a sense.
Does it keep you up at night?
No, but I have confidence that I'll do the right thing and the right job. But it's a very, very scary thing.
There it is. Now, something's keeping him up at night. Apparently, he's only sleeping like 3 or 4 hours a night now, right now.
It's not nukes.
I heard there was a kid.
It's the voter fraud. It's the double registration. Incidentally,
There's
I
also a
forgot
kid
to
in
mention double registration. Turns out Bannon, Mnuchin, and Tiffany Trump.
Tiffany. God damn it, Tiffany. You're the bane of my life.
She's the only one he gets mad
Yeah,
at.
exactly.
Oh, Steve, you rascal. Tiffany, I hate you. A kid in Des Moines said that I have small hands. I can't get any sleep.
All right.
It's very sobering in a certain sense.
Here's the rest. Here's Trump on waterboarding. Remember, now Mike Pompeo and Mad Dog Mattis had no idea about the reopening of black sites or the at least attempted relaxation of the rules of torture in the administration. So it's coming from somewhere.
Mr. President, you told me during one of the debates that you would bring back waterboarding and a hell of a lot worse.
I would do what I would do. I want to keep our country safe. I want to keep our country safe.
What does that
mean?
mean?
When they're shooting, when they're chopping off the heads of our people and other people, when they're chopping off the heads of people because they happen to be a Christian in the Middle East, when ISIS is doing things that nobody has ever heard of since medieval times, would I feel strongly about waterboarding? As far as I'm concerned, we have to fight fire with fire. Now, with that being said, I'm going with General Mattis. I'm going with my secretary because I think Pompeo is going to be phenomenal. I'm going to go with what they say. But I have spoken as recently as 24 hours ago.
That's a lie.
With people at the highest level of intelligence, and I asked them the question, does it work? Does torture work? And the answer was yes, absolutely.
You're now the president. Do you want waterboarding?
I don't want people to chop off the citizens or anybody's heads in the Middle East, okay? Because they're Christian or Muslim or anything else. I don't want, look, now they chop them off and they put them on camera and they send them all over the world. So we have that and we're not allowed to do anything. We're not playing on an even field. I will say this, I will rely on Pompeo and Mattis and my group. And if they don't want to do, that's fine. If they do want to do, then I will work toward that end. I want to do everything within the bounds of what you're allowed to do legally. But do I feel it works? Absolutely, I feel it works.
I feel it works. I feel it. I feel it.
It's like he's almost like the general told him to not put a magnifying glass on an ant or something.
So nuts.
Jesus Christ.
Here is Carl Bernstein on CNN. And we do have this. We have this Jason Chaffetz is starting up an investigation onto Trump's ownership of this hotel. Last night, Hugh Hewitt talking about impeachment, just raising it as an issue. We're 5 days in. He is. You're starting to see people talk about the 25th Amendment. When was the last time you ever heard anybody talk about the 25th Amendment? Did you even know that the 25th Amendment of the United States Constitution basically says we have a mechanism to remove a president if they are, well, I guess the 25th Amendment comes into play like when a president gets shot, right?
You know what? You know who you can thank for all this? Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the DNC machine and you and Chris Hayes and everyone else screwed Bernie, who paved the way, stole the primary for Hillary, and you said, oh, Donald Trump is so bad, but you ensured he happened.
Here is Carl Bernstein talking about this ABC interview, which was, again, you know, some of the stuff was sort of run-of-the-mill Trump stuff, right? Even the torture stuff, as sort of insane as we say that is, sort of like broadly speaking, I thought that was basically run-of-the-mill Donald Trump stuff. But the stuff about the CIA, the stuff about him bragging to lawmakers is crazy. Oh, you know what the story he told lawmakers was, right? This is a story he told lawmakers about the voting where he got the notion of all these illegal votes that were happening. Apparently, people, and I have no reason to believe it's just Democrats. On Monday, President Trump gathered House and Senate leaders in the state dining room for a get-to-know-you reception. This is reported by, I think, Glenn Thrush. I think is New York Times or Washington Post?
Politico.
No, he's not there anymore.
Oh, he's not Politico anymore. Okay.
Washington Post, I think. No, Times. Trump kicked off the meeting by retelling his debunked claim that he would have won the popular vote if not for the 3 to 5 million ballots cast by illegals. When one of the Democrats at the dinner protested, Trump said he was told a story by the very famous golfer, Bernhard Langer.
Great guy.
Whom he described as a friend. This is according to 3 staff members who were in the room for the meeting.
I do think Hitler had less leaks.
3 witnesses, and presumably these, I don't know if these, the 3 witnesses recalled Mr. Langer being the protagonist of the story, although a White House official claimed the president had been telling a story relayed to the golfer by one of Mr. Langer's friends. Mr. Langer is a 59-year-old native of Bavaria, Germany, winner of the Masters, et cetera, was, according to the story, was standing in line at a polling place near his home in Florida on Election Day when an official informed Mr. Langer he would not be able to vote. Ahead of and behind Mr. Langer, this is according to Donald Trump, were voters who did not look as if they should be allowed to vote, Mr. Trump said, according to the staff members, but they were nonetheless permitted to cast provisional ballots. The president threw out the names of Latin American countries that the voters might have come from. I don't know if they were from Mexico or one of the Ecuador.
They could have been from anywhere. They could have been from El Chapo.
Mr. Langer, whom Trump described as a supporter, left feeling frustrated, according to a version of events later contradicted by a White House official. The anecdote, the aide said, was greeted with silence. Everybody's just sort of looking around, staring at each other. You just explained that there's 3 to 5 million votes based on this one story told to you by this German golfer.
Yeah, like, can we get him some antipsychotic psychotropics while we ram through the destruction of America, please?
Mr. Trump was prodded to change the subject by Reince Priebus and Senator John Cornyn. Like, maybe you could just, that's a great story.
A great anecdote, Mr. President. Want to talk about Mar-a-Lago?
Here's the problem. Mr. Langer, who lives in Boca Raton, Florida, is a German citizen with permanent residence status in the United States, who is, by law, barred from voting. This according to Mr. Langer's daughter, Christina. He's a citizen of Germany, she said, when reached on her father's cell phone. He's not a friend of President Trump, so I don't know why he would talk about him. A senior White House staff member who was not at the Monday reception but has heard Mr. Trump tell the story said Mr. Langer saw Mr. Trump in Florida during the Thanksgiving break and told him the story of a friend of Mr. Langer's who had been blocked from voting. So there you have it. That's what presented that leak, which has made Donald Trump so crazy. Here is Carl Bernstein on CNN raising the specter that, and remember, this is the guy who reported on Nixon, who there's been movies about how sort of like, really, he had some emotional issues. 4 days into this presidency, 5 days into this presidency, it seems that people are ringing just a slightly louder alarm bell.
I think there is a subtext here that is unlike anything that I have seen in 50 years of being a reporter. And that is that I am hearing from Republicans, and other reporters are as well, that there is open discussion by members of the President of the United States' own party about his emotional maturity, stability. People are saying his psyche is driving the news cycle, that we are in uncharted territory here, and we ought to talk to some of our colleagues about what they are hearing. I think it's a really fruitful area because I've never heard talking about a president the way this subtext is now a talking point.
You hear what he's saying there? I'm having Republicans tell me that they're worried that the president is insane. And what Bernstein is also saying is that in the past, we hear things as reporters that are on background, that are broad and general, that we don't report. We didn't report the dossier, for instance, because we can't substantiate it. And we normally would not report on something like they say he's crazy because I'm not a doctor. I can report that a psychiatrist went in there and said, wrote up a report that said he's crazy. But I can't report that but it's becoming so prominent in Carl Bernstein's conversations with Republicans that Carl Bernstein is now saying that, like, us reporters should start to communicate with each other about these stories to get a sense of just how real, and I think more importantly, urgent this is. So, I mean, look, it's Carl Bernstein saying this today. Next week, it's going to be others. And the way you're going to watch this go, it seems to me, is it's going to move. If you put Carl Bernstein on some type of spectrum of reporters in terms of how liberal his contacts are, how establishment his Republican contacts are, as opposed to, let's say, maybe a guy like Costa, from the Washington Post, I think he's still, who has more like Tea Party, sources. You're going to be able to track just like how widely, because Bernstein's not just saying that. I don't think Bernstein's freelancing. I think Bernstein's saying, like, can I talk about this generally? Can I talk about this generally? Because that's what reporters, they do. They basically have a conversation. There is an understanding and agreement with the regular sources that, like, all this stuff is, off the record. And then at different times, the reporter will say, can I mention this on background? Can I mention this and they negotiate how one's going to mention it. You can say senior source, senior official in the administration. All these words mean something. We're seeing this now, 5-6 days in. I mean, 10 days, we're going to be seeing something different.
Carl, you think that he's a crazy fucking guy? I think Ryan's going to be having that conversation.
It's going to be really...
What's good, though, is he's surrounded by people that are really mentally healthy. It's not like his...
Like Mike Pence.
Yeah, it's not like his associates are religious fanatics or bigoted alcoholics.
Let's go to... what else we got here? Oh, this is pretty incredible. So, the Minnesota House. What's so funny about Minnesota?
You just keep saying Minnesota wrong. You said Minnesota. It's okay.
Minnesota.
You did the other day.
Save it
too.
for the commissary.
Minnesota. The Minnesota House.
Look, I'll take my last where I can get them.
Okay. The Minnesota House passed a bill, I believe this was last night, Tuesday night. It was just a committee passed by the House Civil Law Committee. The Minnesota House, incidentally, is a majority Republican. The committee passed a measure 6-3. Is that a party line vote? Republicans 4, which approved a bill to charge protesters for police costs associated with disruptive demonstrations. Free speech, not so free anymore, folks. You'll recall that last summer, a man named Philando Castile was a black man shot and killed by I believe it was St. Anthony police officer in Minnesota. And there were protests. Well, after the bill was passed, a guy named John Thompson, who was a friend of Castile's, led protests against that vote and was rather vocal about it.
This ain't no protest. We voted for y'all. We voted for you. And you. And you. We voted for y'all. You don't tell us no. Shame on y'all. Orlando blood on your head. Orlando blood is on your head. Orlando blood is on your head. Shame on you, Minnesota. You don't care about us. Shame on you. You should leave. You should leave because those seats you sitting in will be replaced by somebody who will represent us. You should leave. You should leave. You should leave today. You should leave. Shame on you. Wait until your grandson gets murdered by the police. Wait till it's your grandson. What are you afraid of? Shame on you. Shame on you. Shut it down. Shut it down. Shame on you. Shut it down.
Big protest. Nuts. This just breaking. A hacker on Twitter. This is a CNN story, I guess. A hacker on Twitter known as Wachula Ghost told CNN that the president's Twitter account is linked to a personal email account, one most likely belonging to Dan Scavino, his social media chief. Hey, POTUS, on a serious note, Wachula Ghost wrote, let's fix your security settings. Should I email you? That means a hacker could potentially gain access to that Gmail account.
Oh my God, do it. Please shut it down.
Yeah, the problem is they could use the email not to shut down the Twitter, but to take over the Twitter
Yes,
account.
take over the what could be worse?
I'm invading North Korea. They could tweet that.
Or they can invade,
Well,
like,
then they say
I've
that it's
just
been
taken a
hacked
lot
and-
of lithium. And first of all, I'd like to say sorry for being such an incredible asshole to everyone. One. Two, I think a lot of the sexualized comments I've made about my daughter, totally inappropriate. If there was a wave of really sort of like sane and conciliatory tweets, we would know that he has been hacked.
Yeah.
I actually I trust Chinese statecraft to a degree. I actually think if Chinese hackers took over his Twitter, it would be great. There would just be like random horrific xenophobics like Tibet is officially part of China and the Dalai Lama is no longer welcome in America. Number two, sorry for being such a jerk. We need more diplomacy.
Cuck the police. Alex Jones claims InfoWars has been offered White House press credentials. Oh my God. And the TYT website has been taken offline.
I have no doubt.
I don't know. Somebody shut down the TYT site, maybe?
I have no doubt that. Well, that's weird.
I don't know. That would be weird.
I have no doubt. Of course, Alex Jones is going to get press credentials in the Trump White
Yep.
House. Are you kidding me?
Yep.
He's mainstream press for these people.
Oh, it's maintenance, maybe. I don't know. I don't know why it's down.
TYT is down.
Just for the time being. I don't know anything about it. I love Sarah Palin. Sam, is there still a chance Trump is doing a liberal performance art? Essentially, everything he says is promoting fake news is found on right-wing talk shows. Or is Trump just gaslighting? No, I think today that's what our show has been
He's
about.
insane.
He's insane. Okajik, hi, Sam. On a positive note, I'm heartened by the women's marches. There's a feeling of building a real grassroots movement. And this energy must be converted into legislative resistance action. Womensmarch.com has their first action, postcard to senators. No peep out of Michael Moore's 100 Days of Resistance. What are your top 1 to 2 issues to push? Gosh, what are my top 1 to 2 issues to push? I mean, yeah, it's really hard for me to, I think a lot of it's going to be defensive, but I would say right now is a good time to support sanctuary cities. But tomorrow it could be something else.
Doing, I think, is worthwhile.
Yeah, I read somewhere that Madeleine Albright was registering as a Muslim. Now, I don't know if you can actually do that right now. I don't know. It's unclear. Like, we're still, all he's doing is putting out proclamations that it's unclear how these things are going to be exercised. They dropped a bomb into. I mean, I think the important things to do right now, frankly, are to send letters to your senators and calls to say no to as many of Trump's nominees as possible.
Vote against all of them.
I mean, that's where I would start.
I would also say I also would keep up all pressure on ACA because I still think that that's an area where they're like in the moment vulnerable. Like that's
Yes.
one of the only things that they might not be able to do.
I mean, you could also say when you call them, do not help them with replace at all. Sam in Minnesota. To what degree do you think Dems voting for some cabinet appointments are good faith tokens to avoid the appearance of obstructionism per se? They may be thinking that. I just don't think that is operative. I just don't think that works.
That's like it's playing by a rule book.
Trying
that
to
doesn't
avoid
exist.
appearing to be the knee-jerk obstructionist that you accuse the GOP of being for the last 8 years. Yes, they may be doing that, but that's a mistake because that strategy worked. And it's not knee-jerk to vote against a guy who has absolutely no credentials to be these are not stretches.
That was the other point, too. I mean, and Rick Perlstein had a really disturbing quote that he tweeted. He said a senior Senate staffer was like, we'll look like hypocrites. I mean, we fought obstruction for 8 years. First of all, no one's paying attention and no one cares. And secondly, that's the other really important point, right? If President Obama won and was like, Angela Davis is taking over HUD, and Cornel West is in charge, Secretary of Education. And
that's not even as far of a reach.
No, because those people are actually even competent. I literally cannot even think of, I don't know, you know what? This dude who's a black Israelite on the corner is my foreign Secretary of State.
Rosie O'Donnell is going to be head of Secretary of Education.
I mean, maybe, but Rosie O'Donnell doesn't even have like a particular personal financial interest in it. I can't even think of the right analogies. I'm just saying that even if you stripped away the incompetence and you just said Barack Obama nominated people that weren't centrists, okay? Like, even that analogy, because look at what they just did with Merrick Garland.
Yeah.
The way they treated him, you would have thought he nominated, like, I don't know, it was like Lonnie Grenier or somebody to this.
We've done this. Kyle Rumpf, I was debating a Trump supporter about whether or not the left were the real fascists. I asked him to list the ways. He ranted for a while about all the reasons. After separating the obvious hyperbole from specific gripes, the leftover reasons were Obamacare, Common Core, taxes, EEOC laws, affirmative action, unions, and things like that. Then I had to explain with our Constitution, common law systems are set up. This is all lawful under a democracy, not some form of oppression. I ended my argument by telling him the real problem is democracy in our is democracy in our Constitution. I think a good tactic for debating these libertarians is to separate them from democracy and the Constitution. It further marginalizes them and puts them on the fringes of the mainstream. Joseph Ballin. based on what I've been saying, the Trump's regime position on Iran is not so much rip up the Iran deal, but to undermine it enough to provoke the conflict with Iran. According to Paul J. from Real News, Pence is now talking to Cheney every few days. Ugh. I also believe the neocons around Trump, and I think Obama's foreign policy was not to remove Assad in Syria, but to bog down Assad and the Hezbollah and weaken Israel's only real main threat on its borders. Also, Trump poised to lift ban on CIA black site prisons. Cool J146, how do you think a Trump administration will help your subscription numbers? Will it help? I think it's going to help.
Doing everything
there's
I
a lot
can
of,
do
like
for
I say,
progressive
there's a
grassroots
lot of
media.
people who are engaging in politics now because of Trump. And my hope is to still have programming that is expansive enough that we engage people more deeply into politics. Amcavoy, today is my birthday. Can I get some words of wisdom from mobbed up right-wing Mandela?
What you should do is you go out, you have a great fucking day, you get some hours for yourself, you turn off this pansy show you're listening to that is only going to sap your testosterone, make America great again, make the year great again, make the fucking day great again. Just like Joey Nosock says, you have one fucking life to live and you fucking live it. And if you don't want to fucking live it, you grab life by the fucking pussy.
Don't
it's
you go
true.
to you don't go to a strip club on your birthday?
Who?
He doesn't suggest that?
I thought he did.
I didn't hear that.
Or no, you think he skipped the strip club?
I'm saying, doesn't Mandela at that point
Go
say,
to the whores. What do you
Oh,
waste time with
okay.
the fucking strippers for? What do you read Maxim magazine because you're too timid for the real thing? Of course you do, you lesbian-looking church mouse.
Reformed conservative? Love how Trump thinks the world is a mess. He can't get any angrier. He seems to forget 2 world wars that took place. We're so fucked. Michael Brooks' future wife. Are you aware that there's currently a massive protest happening in Philadelphia right now? They're protesting the GOP meetings, and Trump is there today. It's a beautiful thing. I knew there were some big protests last night, but no, I didn't know. 8 Drops of Blood. For some reason, I still listen to the Jimmy Dore show. I worry he's straying into useful idiot territory. Spent an entire show recently downplaying Russia's ties to Trump and their possible interference in the election. I don't understand. Like, I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand. I don't know even what to say. Like, you know, I get people who are like, why are you slamming Russia? Like, what? I'm just. The idea that we have gotten out ahead of what has been reported about Russia and Trump's relationship with Russia, or their involvement in, the hacking and whatnot, is just absurd. It's just absurd. And I don't know. You know what? He also spent a show diagnosing Clinton's Parkinson's from when she fainted. Did he do that with Mark Dayton? Isn't that part of? Can he put that in a playlist on his shows, like diagnoses?
Let's de-escalate.
I'm just curious. It's more of like I'm curious more from like a business, from like a YouTube optimization standpoint. Do you put those all in one playlist, or? I'm just curious. Jesus. Death camp for Lucas, Forculus. Hey, Sam, I used to go by the IM handle Data Review, but since the election, I've really gotten into Stalinism, hence the new handle. I hope Comrade Michael likes it. Winky face. Had a great time in D.C. last week and recommend the podcast to all my radical buddies looking for smarter news source. All I want to say was this. I don't believe these powers will ever these people will ever give up power and perceive this as a corporate coup. The logical end to the extreme movement of the Republican Party the last 30 years. All we can do now is support your local anti-fascists and never stop punching Nazis. Peace, guys. Somebody was very upset with me on Twitter that I advocated people punching other people. And I don't.
That was me.
Don't advocate people punching other people. And I don't advocate people punching Nazis. However, when it happens, I'm not going to condemn it because, a punch of a Nazi, I think, is not a bad thing. I'm not going to encourage it because I feel like if people feel like they're in a position to punch a Nazi and they want to, I'm not going to judge.
I have a genuine. He's being lawyerly. I have a genuine question.
No, I'm not being.
No,
lawyerly.
I understand. Well, no, you
I don't feel
have
comfortable.
an ambiguous
I don't
view.
feel comfortable advocating violence because, who gets to decide who's a Nazi if they don't self-identify as a Nazi?
But let me just ask a question.
When they've
though.
said publicly that they're Nazis, they have, and so Richard Spencer, I mean, this is the person that we were specifically talking about, but if you have declared that you don't have respect for, that you have more respect for one race than another, and, that you think
I wouldn't endorse
certain people are better than others.
I wouldn't advocate people
And that you just
randomly
don't
punching
have-
people that they think are racist.
Let me.
Well, it's not just racist, but if you it goes with a history of human rights violations, serious human rights violations, and I just don't think that. I think you lose your right to expect not the Nazi.
Well, I'm just saying the reason why I don't advocate it is because
they're advocating for violence.
Prior to the punch, I can't assess whether or not that person's a Nazi. That's why I wouldn't advocate people going out and punching Nazis. Now, if somebody's marching down the street wearing a Nazi uniform and saying, I'm a Nazi, I think maybe a punch.
So in the case of Richard Spencer, though?
In the case of Richard Spencer, after the fact, when the punch has happened,
but he's gone on television and said what he thinks.
Let him thread his nuance. But can I ask?
That's fine. But he's already said what he thinks.
But let me ask a bigger question.
He advocates for genocide.
Well, I
don't
you
care
saying
if anyone punches him in the face. I'll punch him in the face.
Well, but that's different. Saying I don't care if anybody punches him in the face.
No, I
than
want people
advocating
to.
people. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question though. I don't understand how and this is like a genuine question. When in last summer, I think there might be people, frankly, who are, more sort of in the liberal, squishy center left than we are, who might have more early than you or I did called Trump what he was, right? I think that might be possible. But they were also the first people that when people went to Trump rallies last summer and started, and I'm not even talking about violence, they weren't engaging in violence, but physically confronting and intervening in the guys' campaigns and blocking highways and the same squishy liberal people who are freaked out about fascism were like, well, that's not open discourse.
That doesn't make sense.
And that doesn't make any sense to me. And I think that if we're going to get real about what we're actually facing, we have to recognize that historically the responses to that weren't having a debating society or a reasoned conversation. And I'm not suggesting that leads to clear answers, and I'm not advocating that people punch somebody, whatever. But people have to recognize that it's a totally contradictory proposition to say that you're dealing with something that's fundamentally anti-democratic, that's fundamentally bigoted, that is outside of the bounds of those conversations, and then think that the mechanisms of open exchange can deal with them.
Right. I mean, I don't know what the criticism. I mean, I think to a certain extent, I am very reticent to have a show where I'm advocating violence.
Of course, but can we? But we can't. But I guess the point I'm making is the black bloc tactics. I don't promote it. Probably, honestly, first and foremost, because I'm not going to do it. So I'm not going to be in a position of telling somebody else to put themselves at risk for something I'm not going to do. Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that But when we sit back and we immediately go,
So your position is mine. You're saying I'm being nuanced and I'm trying
yeah,
to
no, I
finesse
think
it.
I have no problem
But it's
with.
basically the same thing. I'm not going to.
Well, no, I would add a
advocate
step,
it,
but I would add a
but
step. I think it's important to not condemn. That might be the
That's
distinction.
exactly what I just said.
Even more, okay, no, I thought you were saying I won't condemn. I mean, I thought you were making it like. No, I guess we are basically saying the same thing.
Yes,
I think it's
thank you.
it's very important. Well, I'm thinking also more broadly than just punching people. Like I think
I
there
mean,
needs to
kicking, burning them with a cigarette.
Oh no!
poop on
Well,
them.
I was getting more to like burning the
fecal
limo.
matter. I'm
Ew,
totally.
The poop bags are good.
I
Poop
do
bags.
condemn that categorically. That's disgusting.
Burning people with. I don't know. That's a little weird.
When
I didn't
Winnie
say a
stopped-
cigar.
when
I said
Winnie-
a
there.
I said a
Why'd
cigar-
you-
cigarette, not a cigar.
When Winnie broke out the necklaces, that's when you really knew she was a crazy bitch.
All right, let's do. I gotta race through these. Ignatius
Ain't in the
Riley.
sack, though.
Can you guys speculate on Trump's end game with his illegal voting investigation? Yes. His end game medication. Bare hands. New character. Dum left Bane. Will take control away from the government and give it to Jill Stein.
We'll take control.
I can't. I can only do it as. Why would Trump ever do that? My interaction with the right wingers on the gag order on the government agencies are quite disgusting. They take it as a sign of a man keeping his business in line, keeping them accountable. The government isn't a business, and Trump isn't CEO of the U.S. people. Petrus. Dems botched the election, and they're botching the transition. They don't want to make the move to their natural constituency. They should have been leading the marches. Yeah. By the way, how much do you think it cost Soros to stage the marches? Surprised Trump hasn't addressed this yet. The 2017 Doomsday Clock announcement this morning is beyond frightening. There are so many clips to be had in their presser this morning. Clock.bulletin.org. It's a must-see, eloquent and alarming. Now senior diplomats are gone too. Jesus. Theodore Cuxtable. As a DOD employee, the CIA visit from Trump was bizarre. I've never seen that kind of response from the crowd during a briefing. Please take some comfort in knowing that there are good people working in the DOD who are trying to do the right thing.
Of course. He has
I
nothing
do.
but disdain for them.
You know, I wish we had a secure drop or something like that.
There needs to be an organization that isn't WikiLeaks that performs a similar function.
But there are a lot of different
Yeah.
media places have secure drop stuff. Maybe we should just get a Majority Report Signal account.
That's a good idea.
I wonder if that would work.
That's a good idea.
Somebody email me and if you think that's a good idea, if people want to. Because I would love to hear, you know, obviously I don't want you to send me, because we're not that type of outlet and it would be wasted on us, frankly. We have the Pentagon Papers, you know, for like 6 to 8 months and nobody just...
By the way,
we presented the Pentagon Papers, but it didn't get many hits on YouTube, so we just said, fuck it.
you know, we would present the Pentagon Papers and people would be like, yeah, we knew you were fucking Cory Booker, you sellouts.
But if you have just perspectives from inside these agencies that are not, you know, highly classified, but would give our listeners a greater sense of what's going on, send us an email and maybe we'll send up a Signal account. Maybe that would be the best way to do it, I think. Are y'all keeping up with what's going on at Voice of America? I think it might be flying under the radar. Yes, I've heard that. Let's see. The point you're making with this caller about getting engaged is along the same lines as the ham-fisted point I was trying to make yesterday about getting involved with the party on a local level. If one wants to set the agenda, they have to be willing to handle the heavy lifting. Jez Gargelet, one explanation you haven't suggested as to why Warren and Brown voted yes on Carson is the biggest one, class. They still have actual faith in the system to produce results they can live with because they identify with the class first and ideology second. I don't know how that works.
I think The Intercept has an instruction manual for how to leak documents.
Even to us?
No, I was just saying more broadly beyond us. We should get our Signal account.
Every outlet.
Yeah.
They have a Dropbox at the New Yorker. I mean, a lot of these outlets do. But we can't do something like that. But a Signal account might be good for just like getting comments that people don't feel comfortable saying, although I don't know.
I thought it was a little weird when Joey No Socks came into
Frustrated. Sam, did you know Betsy DeVos is the sister of Eric Prince? Yes. Check out the interview Amy Goodman gave to Jeremy Scahill this week. His first book, Blackwater, had horrifying things to tell us about the DeVos family. The one and only Arnold, trying to decide, and he came from Milwaukee, I think, Scahill.
Scahill's from Wisconsin, yeah.
And I think DeVos may have been involved in the education system there, my understanding. The one and only Arnold, trying to watch if I'm going to decide if I'm going to watch a video of Dave Rubin with the title, Why the Left is No Longer Liberal.
Could you do me a favor?
Might agree to disagree. I just don't want to give that guy the views, and I dislike the term liberal before it was fashionable. Drop the political terms, people. They only divide, and Rogue One sucked balls, and everybody dies at the end. Oh! I thought Rogue One was good.
Dave Rubin, don't give the guy a click.
I thought Rogue One was good.
Fucking moron, that guy.
Democratic Party currently constitute is not ready or yet willing to be the party of resistance, says Ed Winara. Not to mention some Democratic officials will be happy to give their corporate backers tax cuts and deregulation. I agree. Did you know Gabbard has direct connections to a weird Hare Krishna cult, right? Yeah, we talked about that briefly back in the day. Governor Christie is reportedly unsure about his lieutenant governor running for governor. He probably thinks he's so unpopular he doesn't want to hurt her chances. I am a sock. Elizabeth Warren said she'd vote for Carson after reading his answers to written questions, which I admit, when I read them, were very good answers. Great, but so what? Rose and penis. Sam, can you recommend a safe way to recruit minorities to... Secret identity. Michael hit the nail on the head about the weaponization of rural versus urban politics. If the goal is to rope rural voters into some kind of coalition, what hope does a leftist collective movement have, particularly when it seems Trump is actually going to try and offer tax cuts to large corporations to give jobs to these rural voters? Starting to think this isn't going to be over in 8 years if the goal is that kind of radical paradigm shift. Individualism is too strong. No word salad. I was watching Trump interview last night and suddenly occurred to me, he's the cuck president. He's large, differently colored man plowing for Lady Liberty. Okay, I don't. Only difference is I don't enjoy all this. Bull Prague. Paul Joseph Watson of InfoWars is the new Judith Miller. Pushed 3 million illegal vote story, and Trump uses it as justification. Yes, the only difference is that he's not citing InfoWars, and if he did, then this would be over much quicker. Dolink just had neurosurgery Monday, home that afternoon, grateful for Medicare. Video of Melania, some say, was reverse edited, but that is life, wife of narcissist, not surprising. All right, one more phone call, and then you guys will.
You're a racist, Melania. It's disgusting.
All right, we'll go. Sorry, callers, can't get to you. We'll get to 585. Who's this?
Hi, this is Rebecca from Boonville, New York.
Hi, Rebecca. What's on your mind?
So two things. One thing, real quick. I live real close to the edge of the Adirondack Park. I'm extending a vacation invitation to all of you guys. If you just need to get away from the insanity, we have a nice, comfortable, cozy home, so you're welcome.
Oh, well, that's
and
very
I'll send
sweet.
you an email.
Thank you. That's very sweet of you.
Yeah.
Michael will be there in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I'm actually... I'll see you tomorrow.
You know what? I'll make you a hot toddy. I'm originally from Alabama, and I make a killer hot toddy.
Bye, guys.
All set up. So I have something really important to share. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hello?
Okay, perfect. I don't know if you mentioned it. Are you still there?
Yep.
Okay. Don't know if you mentioned it, but Representative Ted Lieu and Senator Ed Markey reintroduced a bill restricting first use of Nuclear Weapons Act of 2017. Real briefly, I'll tell you, the bill states, quote, the president may not use the armed forces of the United States to conduct a first use nuclear strike unless such strike is conducted pursuant to a declaration of war by Congress that expressly authorizes such strike. Unquote, or end of quote. Now, understand this does not restrict any retaliatory strikes, but I would urge everyone that's been waking up in the middle of the night terrified that this insane mango president has the nuclear biscuit in his pocket. I would highly recommend that people call their senators and their representatives to vote for this bill. That's one thing, one constructive, positive, active thing that people can do right now.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
We will put that on the blog, and we're going to send that out in the email blast. That's a great thing that, you know, people are really, there's a lot of people looking for stuff that they can do actively, and this one is a great one. It doesn't resolve all the sort of dangers with a President Trump, even in terms of nukes, right? But it would be it would give authorization to others around him to prevent something like that from happening, and it also, I mean, frankly, you know, the politics around it are really good. You know, you don't want to be that senator who's like, well, I'd still like President Trump to have first strike, you know, capabilities.
Take an Ambien.
So thank you very much. That's a great idea.
And one interesting thing to note is that actually Representative Liu introduced this bill a year ago when no one would have ever predicted that Trump would win. So that's just an interesting thing to note.
How far did it get a year ago? Not that far, I guess.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Interesting. All right. Well, appreciate the call. We will definitely we'll put that on the blog, and then we will put it in our email blast this week.
All right, and I'll send you an official invitation to Boonville, New York via email. Y'all take care, and thank you so much.
And obviously we would go at
Thank you
separate
so
times,
much.
right? Because I would like it to be an actual vacation.
That is going to be something that I think she may end up regretting for a long time.
You're going to end up taking the most time, I find. Like, hi, it's me again. I told Nikki that I had to do something.
There's like a huge TV and an Xbox there.
Just
Oh
waiting.
my God, yes.
I told her that there was a secret MSNBC thing that I was going to be on all day, but she couldn't see it, and I had to go.
Secret. It's a secret political conference.
It's a confab. I'm going to meet all the ones, and we're going to stop Trump. Do you see? Okay, bye.
All right. Matt, give me a letter.
G.
Gulfstream 2. Trump isn't getting any sleep because of the constant parade of dead presidents floating in the presidential bedroom. Kelly, letter.
L.
Lawn Chair Media. I'm going to pre-order my commemorative brick when the Great Wall of Trump falls because of lack of interest and cost overruns. I'll put it next to one of my CYO participation ribbons from grade school in old batteries in a drawer somewhere. Michael. D. Doniak. You have questions covering Trump so much, but a legitimately insane president is the biggest story in decades, so I say do it. You might want to call it the insane half on days like this. Matt, one more.
P.
Passive-aggressive progressive. Just introduced by Jeff Flake in the Senate, the Transportation Investment Recalibration Equality Tire Act would suspend the Davis-Bacon Act, prevailing wage requirements for transportation and other infrastructure projects. The 86-year-old law requires construction businesses to pay their employees a prevailing wage set by the Labor Department for work on public infrastructure contracts. You know what that's about, is their infrastructure project is basically a big privatization scheme, and it would allow those privatizers to pay sub-minimum wages. Uneffing believable. Kelly. Last one for him.
P.
Another P.
D.
Going back. D, another D. Didn't we have, yeah, we already did D. Just pick another letter from the alphabet. One more.
J.
J. Jeremad, I've noticed some similarities between Faust and Trump, even a draining swamp reference. Faust wishes to crown his work by draining a large swamp without the aid of magic, and to make his realm a safe habitation for a great colony of free, industrious men. But a higher power intervenes. Faust commands the supervisor of his work, Mephisto, in disguise, to have the work done on the ditch begun, but the subject spirits dig Faust's grave. Brief History of German Literature by George Madison Priest. And Michael, the final
A.
I am that you get to choose, because I will do one. Andrew from Idaho. If you think any of Trump's insanity will change the minds of a significant amount of its voters, you haven't spent enough time on conservative-filled social media. As long as he maintains some image of pro-life and blind patriotism, they're willing to follow him anywhere. We are effed. That may be true, but I think there may be some people in... Oh, yeah, okay. We're getting feedback because I think we're connected. All right, folks. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking